Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll see what happens. We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I am a dissident.
Don't move. Move.
I'm saying no. Why you hear Palantir, 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 Palantir? It's not going to stop.
Seriously, we need to release the F-scene list.
Turns off.
I am not a church boy.
Turns off.
They're full-on vampires.
They hate our beef. They hate our beef. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Sunday evening edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular once again.
Hello.
How's everybody doing tonight? Thanks, everybody, so much for being here. Pleasure to be with you all, as always. Nice crowd to start things off here. We got 513 filing in the YouTube chat, 247 over on Rumble. Let's smash that like button nice and hard, get an even bigger crowd in here for our first guest, who is going to lead things off for us tonight. He is a journalist, a political activist, currently the Green Party candidate for Maryland's 4th Congressional District. Sam Husseini is perhaps best known for his direct confrontational style of journalism in the State Department press room. Of course, in January 2025, he made global headlines when he was physically dragged out of Antony Blinken's final press briefing after questioning the administration's handling, of course, of the genocide in Gaza. He has continued on with his journalism, his activism, and he is now running for Congress, like I said, in Maryland's 4th against Democrat Glenn Ivey and Republican George McDermott. Been following his work for a very long time, so it's a great pleasure to welcome Sam Husseini to the show. Sam, great to see you. Great to meet you.
Great to be with you. God, I didn't know my hair was so ruffled.
That's all right.
Good to be with you, gentlemen.
Keaton is kind of known for that.
I got to get
so
used to the whole podcast, man. I'm a print guy. I got to move along here.
No, I'm used to that.
Worked for Don King.
I actually,
really.
I actually did my hair in
Ben-Gvir.
advance.
It really worked for Ben-Gvir.
Yeah, that's right.
He's another one.
That's right. He's another one. He's another one for sure. For sure. Now, you are, of course, kind of a fixture of this space for good reason. So I got into this a little bit in my intro there. But back in January 2025, the last days of the Biden administration, you get dragged out of Antony Blinken's press briefing. And so let's just take a look at this video real quick.
Free people. You pontificate about a free press. You pontificate about a free press. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. I am asking questions after being told by Matt Miller that he will not answer my questions until I'm asking questions. Wasn't the point of the May 31st statement to block the ICJ orders? You blocked the ICJ orders.
Please, sir, respect the process.
Respect the process. Respect the process. While everybody from Amnesty International to the ICJ is saying that Israel's doing genocide and extermination, and you're telling me to respect the process. Criminal. Why aren't you in The Hague?
As I remember, Max Blumenthal was dragged out that day as well.
Was he? Yeah.
That was an eventful last day.
Max took the easy way out. He walked out.
That's right. He walked out. Well,
and I say that with all love and respect. But after they took me out in the hallway, they shoved me around pretty damn good and gave me a concussion. So that's
really.
And I should also say, people say it's his last news conference. Like I waited for years before confronting him. He didn't show his face for like more than a year, in the briefing room. And I was contending with Matt Miller and the other people there. And after a while, they were avoiding me at first, and then they just told me to my face that they weren't going to take my questions anymore. So
Yeah, well,
at that, yeah. So I had literally nothing to lose. And Blinken claimed at that news conference that he would take everybody's questions. A total lie. I knew it was a lie, so I called it out. So what the hell?
So what do you think when you see Blinken now and a lot of other people in the administration trying to do a mea culpa tour? Oh, I felt that
It's
way then, but
It's so totally obviously phony. They're trying to rewrite history, and they're trying to pretend that they weren't working hand in glove with Netanyahu and the Israeli establishment to keep everything going. I mean, one of the questions that my first question out of there was that they put out statements in May of 2024 after the ICJ orders. I pushed for a country to invoke the Genocide Convention in 2023, and then South Africa stepped up and did it. And then the ICJ put forward a couple of orders. The first two were good, but not specific enough. And then in May, they issued a really direct one. You, Israel, are invading Rafah. You began your invasion on May 7th. You must immediately stop. This was at a time when the Biden administration was claiming, oh, there are incursions, but it's not an invasion. They were leveling the place. And then what does Biden do to get out of it? After the ICJ order comes down, Algeria is drafting a resolution at the Security Council. And if they tried to veto that, potentially all hell would break loose at the UN finally. So what do? Biden steps up and makes a statement that Netanyahu has agreed to a ceasefire. And everybody was so naive. The peace movement was so naive because they just wanted to hear the word ceasefire come out of Biden's mouth. They plotted meticulously to undermine international law, to give Israel the total green light, as well as obviously the arms and the wherewithal and everything else to commit genocide. It's it's complete bunk that what they're trying to do to rewrite it with Blinken. They're carting out Hunter Biden. They're putting out anything and everything they can to make people think that the Democrats have seen the light.
Well, this became pretty apparent pretty early on, and part of what made it so apparent was actually watching the State Department press briefings. I mean, we covered multiple times on this show grillings of, Matthew Miller from the press room. We remember you, who we've covered, Matt Lee, a couple of other reporters who would repeatedly do their best to hold the administration accountable for facilitating this, grotesque crime against humanity. But can you talk about the experience of just being in that press room day after day, getting stonewalled time after time? Did that create a certain tension that just boiled over on the last day, as you talked about, or did you talk to your colleagues about, how to maybe press harder? Because it seemed very obvious they were intent on blocking any serious questioning. We'd see, our Israeli partners are investigating that hospital strike. We don't know what happened there. And then there'd be no follow-up. It was just so obvious what was going on. Can you talk about the experience of having to ask those questions time after time and getting shut down time after time?
I could write a book. There were so many news conferences. I distinctly remember one where Matt Miller asked everybody questions, and at the end of the news conference, there were three people with their hands up: me, Max Blumenthal, and Liam Cosgrove. And that was just indicative of a total pattern where they were doing everything that they could to avoid calling on people who were asking tough questions. You had, some good questioning by Matt Lee and Saeed Erekat, but they do it kind of gingerly. Whereas I was really nailing them, pointing out that they won't accept the Geneva Conventions. They never say it, but if you parsed out their policy closely, they were in effect abiding by policy that didn't recognize that the Geneva Conventions apply to the Palestinians. And that's a legal construct for making it a free fire zone. If you think about it, the way that they talk about Israel has a right to defend itself, is code for Israel doesn't have to abide by the Geneva Conventions, because Israel's got a right to defend itself against other countries, but these are an occupied people. Israel is occupying the Palestinians under international law. An occupying force does not have the legal right to defend itself. So by saying Israel has a right to defend itself against the Palestinians, you're basically saying that the Geneva Conventions do not apply. And I tried to get that and other points. One time when one of the few times he called on me, I asked about the Hannibal Directive. You're so concerned about the hostages. What about the Hannibal Directive? Wasn't it utilized on October 7th? And isn't it now potentially targeting U.S. citizens? They talk about how U.S. citizens are so important to them, and that's their raison d'etre, to protect U.S. lives. And we know that they don't mean it when they, Palestinian American lives, but even Israeli U.S. citizens, if they're held by a Palestinian group, Israel's targeting them. You'd think that they would be concerned about that, but they weren't. You know what Miller said when I asked him about the Hannibal Directive? I'm not familiar with that alleged directive. Next question. And he immediately jumps to one of his little toadies, and I can't get a follow-up in there, but I force him to lie, because I force the fabrications to be as evident as possible.
Do you ever try garlic with him?
Yeah, garlic.
You ever try garlic with him?
God,
we used to call him Morlock.
God almighty. He wouldn't call on me ever again after I called out his smirk. He's pretending to care about Palestinians. And I think Saeed Erekat asked a question: whatever, 200 people were killed yesterday, and he's trying to parse out a statement where he's pretending that he cares, and he's got the smirk on his face.
Yeah,
while he's talking about dead people, and I say, "You got a smirk on your face? Are you even?" I mean, I put it as a question. Are you even aware that you have a smirk on your face? And after that, he made it totally clear to me he would never call on me again.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing they kept ignoring, and people still to this day in the media act like there aren't clear definitions of what genocide is. You see, Israelis themselves, and obviously propagandists for Israel, talk about if Israel wanted to kill every Palestinian they could have, as if that's what defines genocide. It's very clearly not what defines genocide. I've read the definition. There's 5 points. Making births difficult within a group, harming members of a group, creating unlivable conditions for members of a group. Israel's committed 4 out of 5 to their completion. And then the 5th is transferring children from one group to another, which they would have done already had they been able to. They've been trying to. So it's just amazing to see. It was amazing to see over and over again you and your colleagues just run into this wall of indifference. And the smirk on his face was really indicative of something. I remember Max Blumenthal on that last day said, "You smiled through the whole thing, man. You smirked through the whole thing," because they just acted as though this was not important. And even Kamala Harris on the campaign trail with the "I'm speaking, yeah, it's a bad situation over there, but now we're gonna talk about something more pressing." They really just tried to shrug this whole thing off while it was happening, and it was a really an eye-opening thing for a lot of us to see. But what is your background like? How surprised were you by their handling of this? Because I don't think any of us really expected the Biden administration to rein Israel in, but I think many of us were kind of shocked at just the level of apathy in the face of these horrors that we were seeing day to day. I don't know much about your background before this conflict really exploded post October 7th. How surprised were you to see them handling it the way they did?
I wasn't surprised, because I followed these things for quite a long time. I got my start at political writing and activism at Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and I've worked with the Institute for Public Accuracy, worked with a lot of experts on a lot of issues, especially foreign policy issues, and I really tried to pierce through the machinations of the establishment, both the Democratic and Republican wings of it, how they very often collude on issue after issue. And especially knowing Blinken's background, knowing Biden's background, I was not at all surprised. I mean, I had parsed out how Biden was instrumental in launching the Iraq invasion. He presided over hearings that facilitated Bush invading Iraq, and Lincoln had been one of his henchmen for a long time, or better put, his handler. And I tried to question Biden several times, and he was always incredibly evasive. So I knew that there was a whole ton of lies there. And Blinken's, family background, I mean, his stepfather is Samuel Pizar, who's a longtime pro-Israeli operative. I've written a couple of pieces on that, so I was not at all surprised. And when they came in, they said they clearly didn't want to do the Iran deal. They didn't re-up that, so you could tell that they were working hand in glove effectively with the Trump administration. So I wasn't surprised at all.
So now you're seeing a lot of consternation about how to handle Kamala Harris trying to kind of jump in front of the pro-Palestine parade. Some people felt El Said should have rejected her endorsement. There's been some contradictory reports. We have the candidate in Alaska. What's her name? Patola.
Yep.
She supposedly rejected that endorsement. What do you think? Do you think candidates should just straight out say thanks, but no thanks?
I don't know. I don't give that kind of thing any thought, to be honest with you. I don't. I view that so much of what's going on in the Democratic Party is purely symbolism to try to reestablish the brand, trying to sheepdog people back into it. I really don't. I was trying to figure out the other. I mean, I'm glad El Sayed won, obviously. I mean, anybody with a humane bone in their body wanted to see, Haley Stevens defeated, but I couldn't figure out if he'd said the word genocide prior to this year.
Right.
So that causes me some. I mean, one of the, they undermined the South African case, which is still pending. It's still being adjudicated at the ICJ. I actually went to South Africa earlier this year, trying to get them to ask for more emergency orders. There's nothing stopping them from doing that other than fear, other than their own internal, very powerful Zionist forces in South Africa, which, are definitely an issue, and the threat of, Trump issuing more sanctions or tariffs or whatever against them. But I went there, and that, that South Africa invoking the Genocide Convention, it drew a bright line, right? Because nobody can pretend that they didn't know that genocide was on the table after South Africa invoked the Genocide Convention in late 2023. So, like, if you're not getting around to talking about genocide until 2026,
right?
That's a red flag right there. But I got to tell you that's part of what inspired me to run, being in South Africa. I met with parliamentarians there, and they have, a multi-party, vibrant, they got a hell of a lot of problems, but they have a multi-party, vibrant democratic debate there. And just seeing that up close, I was there for almost 6 weeks. I was like, why is that impossible to have in the USA, which is, all supposed to be for democracy and all of this. So,
all right. Well, we're going to get to your campaign in a moment, but you did make some news today, actually. So we're here with Sam Husseini, everybody, for those who are just joining. Here you are, a few weeks back here, confronting Chuck Schumer at his anti-corruption press conference and highlighting the obvious contradiction there.
Single most profitable scam of his. Please sit down.
Your hair looked good that day.
Down.
Thank God. That's why it really went viral.
You and Trump playing off of each other. Oh, he's worse. Oh, he's worse. You were put on notice in November of 2023 by the Center for Constitutional Rights and other legal and human rights organizations. Notice on potential legal liability for aiding, abetting, inciting, or conspiring to commit genocide for congressional acts and demand. You were put on notice, and you backed it, and you backed the genocide to their hills for years on end. How dare you talk about corruption? How dare you talk about corruption?
Thank you for your diatribe. Now, let's continue. Let's continue and let the people didn't come to hear you.
You should be questioned about your
They came to see my poster board.
It's amazing that you show genocidal face in public.
You know, it's like none of his clips, you know, his other clips got like 10 retweets. You know? Nobody gave a crap about what he was saying.
I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why you went
just
out
to make this poster board.
I mean, looks like
Sorry
you could have
about
taken
that.
those 3
Let's
cents.
continue with the subject at hand.
Let's continue with the subject at hand. And apparently for that little skirmish, you have just been banned. This is pretty hot off the press here. Well, not today, a couple days ago. The press club has banned me for my questioning of Schumer. So I'll let you explain it. You have an article up on your Substack talking about this, but we won't read your words back to you. What happened? Why did they ban you over that?
Well, I don't. They say that that I was some kind of threat to safety and security, which is completely ridiculous. After the incident, the next day, I sent a letter to the president of the press club because one of the security people saying, "Oh, you're going to get banned," saying, "Look, there's absolutely no reason to ban me. There was no threat to security." I was sitting next to Schumer before he stood up and spoke. I was sitting there in the first row, and then he came in late. He sat next to me. I had to make sure he couldn't see my notes. And then he gets up and starts his spiel. This narrative that they're attempting to construct that I was somehow a threat to security is totally without foundation and slanderous, arguably. You know, they just don't want people to ask tough questions. And it's ridiculous that at this event, which was sponsored by Public Citizen, they're supposed to it was basically stated that he would not take questions, and he didn't take questions from any other reporters, which is ridiculous. About an event, you know, dealing with corruption, they're inviting this guy who's basically known as the representative from Wall Street, and he's not going to take any questions. It's ridiculous. You know, I've attempted to engage the press club. I emailed them, the president, the day after the event, and then I just got an email from the executive director, who's a staffer, saying that I'm suspended, and they never got back to me. They never attempted to form a dialogue. They brand themselves as a big advocate for press freedom and so on, but they're muzzling a journalist here who's trying to ask tough questions. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it seems crazy to even have a live event with invited press if they're not allowed to ask any questions. Why not just draft a statement and email it out? You know, like, it doesn't even make any sense. Do you get the sense, because you mentioned Schumer was sitting next to you and you had to make sure he didn't see your notes, do you get the sense that these politicians essentially know like who you are and who the ornery troublemakers are, or do you get the sense that you're not really on their radar and that he was more kind of blindsided by that?
I'm really not sure. Sometimes yes, sometimes. I mean, I've questioned him in the past. I actually got him to once acknowledge. I sort of cornered him about this at the press club. Must have been at least 6 years ago, about Israel's nukes. One of my go-to questions was, will you acknowledge that Israel's nuclear weapons? Because the U.S. establishment line refuses still to acknowledge, more than 60 years after JFK tried to stop Israel's nukes, the Trump administration still won't acknowledge that they exist. And I basically got him to acknowledge that they exist, but he was deceitful in other ways, and I got cut off at that event. But I was able to at least make that kind of progress. I don't know if he remembers me or not. I mean, these guys are surrounded by handlers and just he read his speech there. I mean, God knows. If he had anything to do with writing it, and the basic content of it was Trump is bad, Trump is bad, Trump is bad.
Right. Orange man bad.
Right.
There's something Matt Taibbi wrote about a lot in Hate Inc. in particular, how technically nobody tells you what you can report on, but the incentives of access, promotion, and jobs really constrain the press and filter people like yourself out from the bigger legacy outlets. Like someone like you doing something like that would not even get a job at the Times on a regular basis. As soon as they sniff that out, you're out of there. Is that how control of the press works, where it's kind of unspoken, but it's really a matter of incentives?
I think that's part of it. That's part of the mechanism how it happens, but I think it's an even deeper level than that. I mean, and we've had glimmers of this. I was just thinking about this when Clinton, and I'm no fan of Clinton, Bill Clinton in any way, shape, or form, but when he was about to get into office in 92, 93, he actually tried to recalibrate U.S. policy on Iraq to possibly pull back from having the sanctions and so on. And the media came down on him like a ton of bricks. Tom Friedman and the rest of the New York Times, and then his own incoming Secretary of State, Warren Christopher, basically attacked him and undermined him. So I think the U.S. establishment is basically an empire that's strangling any democratic impulse, and it has a force of its own. And if by some miracle you had a president who wanted the U.S. to be a law-abiding, normal country with a functioning democracy, suddenly access would no longer be an issue, right? It wouldn't be like people want to sit down and have an interview. There are deep structural and economic and other forces that would compel the major media and big tech companies and so on to pummel such a president endlessly. So I think that there's a deeper problem, and I hope to give voice to that with the campaign.
Well, we saw that with Afghanistan with Biden. Even before the kind of botched pullout, there was a full court press to attack him for wanting to pull out. It was amazing.
Correct. Anytime somebody tries to do the right thing, they suddenly, even, if they've been completely diabolical and worked with the establishment and been a tool of the establishment forever and a day, it'll turn on them. So the forces here are incredibly odious, I think.
All right. So once again, we're here with Sam Husseini. You just formally launched your campaign on the Green Party ticket for Maryland's 4th Congressional District. Now, I feel like it's a common thing for activists to pursue elected office. We don't tend to see many journalists sort of make that step. Now, you've kind of, I think, have had your foot in both worlds over the years. You mentioned South Africa a little bit earlier. Do you want to talk a little bit about what inspired you to run and how you put this together with the Green Party and why the Green Party?
Sure. Well, the person allegedly representing the district right now is Glenn Ivey, sometimes known as AIPAC Ivey, because he got into office in 2022 by defeating Donna Edwards, who people might remember. She was, a progressive Dem, who, I knew to some degree, and he got in on a flood of AIPAC money and defeated her. And he ran over to Netanyahu, embracing him during the, when he was slaughtering, hundreds of people a day. And beyond that, he's very much a corporate Democrat, a new Democrat, a sort of Clinton-esque corrupt corporate Democrat. So I felt that somebody had to step up and take this on. And I've, been somewhat involved in helping different campaigns, and I've never felt like, that they've really been aggressive in how they've taken things on. I mean, I've admired some of the things that Massey's done, but and AIPAC dropped a ton of money to get rid of him, obviously, which was a serious assault. But he, like the day of or the day before the election, he got on Fox News, and he's talking about how he agrees with Trump on all these things. He's trying to make nice. And I'm like, no, these people are attacking you. You do not try to make nice with them. You attack them. Just my impulses have been different from what every politicians that I've seen out there. I want to experiment. I believe in taking on the establishment every tool possible, whether it's legal stuff at the ICJ or journalism or art or comedy or media or whatever. And I don't fetishize electoral politics, but I don't think that we can say, oh, that doesn't matter. We're going to totally ignore it. You use every tool. And it's a challenge to me to build deeper roots in the district. It's right outside DC, so it's a very tough district. It's very establishment on the face of it district, but it's also really important because if you actually spark some serious activism here, and some serious civic engagement, then that's going to have ripples throughout, onto official Washington, which I think will be really valuable. And the Green Party did a ton of work. They're really organized here in Maryland, and they got on the ballot. They got however many tens of thousands of signatures. So I got a call from some Green Party people every couple of weeks saying, "Come on, Sam, we got on the ballot.
We have the signatures. Now we just need a candidate, and then we're in business."
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and you see so many candidates because the duopoly makes it so difficult to get on the ballot. I've seen good people spend all of their time getting on the ballot, and this was given to me on a silver platter.
Yeah.
Well, so what do you, given that you are running as a Green, there seems to be a lot of debate right now on the left between the kind of entryism of the DSA or building a third party a la the Greens. Now, I get the impression from your past statements that you have an all of the above vision and you don't see those as being in opposition, or do you?
I don't necessarily see them in opposition. I mean, there was a Justice Dem who ran in the primary against Glenn Ivey, and I pumped up her campaign, reached out to her and everything. So, I'm not dogmatic on the issue, but I'm very skeptical of working within the Democratic Party. I've seen so many things just be symbolic victories or dead ends or, another level of con, sheepdogging and limited hangouts and all these things that we're all, should be familiar with by now. So I'm extremely skeptical of it. And I've taken on, I've been out there, sort of across the political spectrum. I was one of the few people associated with the left that took seriously COVID lab origins from the get-go. Right. And I sort of got canceled for that. And I did a lot of digging about the network of so-called scientists who are doing dangerous lab work, which is really important here in Maryland. We got Fort Detrick, the largest biodefense facility in the world, doing a lot of this dangerous lab work. I hope I can, challenge myself, challenge the Green Party, and take on the Democratic establishment in real way. And I mean, it might give more room to decent forces in the Democratic Party to the extent that they exist. Because if you're not applying pressure from the outside, then ultimately the Democratic establishment will say, you got nowhere to go. And they will marginalize what decent impulses are in the Democratic Party. So I think you need to have somebody pushing from the outside, even if you believe primarily in an inside strategy. I think you need to see the utility of that.
Can you talk a little more about that COVID lab origin work that you did? Because, I think one of the ways that the left has really pigeonholed itself is by reacting to statements like that as, well, you must be right wing, it's a right-wing conspiracy theory. And I think that has put, quite frankly, the Greens, and not just the Greens, I'm not singling them out, but groups like the Green Party, it's put them in a corner unnecessarily, because why not be open-minded about that?
Yeah. I mean, my thing during COVID, talking to people about it is like, what if Trump stood up and said that the sky is green and he made it so, that you would say, no, he didn't make it so. I mean, you don't just, I'm not sure I constructed that analogy quite right, but
we got you.
Yeah. So this reflexiveness that, I started, I was familiar with the work of Francis Boyle, who wrote the U.S. implementing legislation for the Bioweapons Convention. He noted to me that there was a lab in Wuhan, and this is like January of 2020, so before it became front page news or anything like that. And the CDC had a news conference at the press club. So I asked a question there, and their response was so disingenuous. Maybe I should have gotten that to you. I'm happy to come back on and talk about this, and you can show the clip as well. That I started drilling down on it.
We can cut it into the clip.
Yeah,
if you send it over, we can cut it in.
Yeah, just
sure.
email it. I'll send it.
Okay, I'll try.
You don't have to do it now. Just send it after.
Hard for me to
Oh no,
when we not just after the show. When we edit the clip and post it, I'll post it in.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there were multiple stages of propaganda. There was the Lancet letter, which was signed by Peter Daszak, who some people might be familiar with. He was sort of the money bags at EcoHealth Alliance, and they had these basically front groups that sounded like they had nice earthy, crunchy names, but were basically facilitating this dangerous lab work. And there was a proximal origins paper in Nature Medicine magazine, and I parsed through that and exposed the logical fallacies and scientific fallacies. I reached out to a bunch of independent scientists, experts on lab safety, and so on. And then what I started to do after I got a couple of articles out on COVID per se is I started looking at the background of some of these scientists. I ended up two of the scientists who are the most vociferous and working with Fauci and other figures who people are aware of were Bob Gary and Christian Anderson. And they are fascinating because they signed, I don't know if they wrote the damn thing, but they signed the most important paper saying that it couldn't have come out of a lab. But if you look at their background, they headed up a thing called the Viral Hemorrhagic Fever Consortium, which was a lab in West Africa that Africans in 2014 thought might have something to do with the Ebola outbreak. There was a major Ebola outbreak in 2014 in West Africa, 1,000 miles away from where Ebola is endemic in the Congo. And you had the same network of scientists at the time, like Peter Daszak, in the media saying how, it must have come from bats that were flying from the Congo, these magical bats that were flying 1,000 miles without any outbreaks between the 2 points. And they concocted this story about a small boy, playing with bats, but they couldn't find any Ebola in the village where the outbreak happened, which was just over the border in Guinea, where the lab was in Sierra Leone, and they sort of framed Guinea as the center of the outbreak so that people wouldn't associate the lab with the outbreak. But there is substantial evidence, and I wrote a long, in-depth piece with a virologist, Jonathan Latham, making the case and building on the reporting of some African reporters that there is an incredibly strong case that had an origin. So what you have here is a system. Okay, it's not just about one individual outbreak. Right. It is an entire structure. And it's an incredibly well-funded structure. And this goes back to after 9/11, you had the anthrax attacks, which were a false flag bioweapons attack on the U.S. Congress, right? It was, anthrax was sent by U.S. mail to members of Congress with death to America, death to Israel, praise to Allah, at a critical time right after 9/11 in order to compel Congress to knuckle under and abrogate civil liberties, institutionalize the so-called Patriot Act, so-called Department of Homeland Security, ICE, right? We're all complaining about ICE now.
Right.
That's the origins of ICE are in the aftermath of 9/11.
Yep.
So this entire structure was made real in that, and only due to the work of a couple of dedicated scientists did we find that those anthrax spores were originated from a U.S. lab, and so they must have come out of either a U.S. or an allied lab that the U.S. government in Fort Detrick might have shared with either Israel or Great Britain, or so-called Great Britain, not so great Great Britain, and so and Congress never investigated this. It was a false flag bioweapons attack that shut down Congress. Leahy was one senator who at least said some things about it, because he was one of the targets of the letters. Right. They had Mueller come on before a committee, and Leahy, the FBI tried to pin it on several people, and the case fell apart each time, apparently. And then they tried to pin it on Bruce Ivins, and then he turns up dead. So there's no trial, there's no investigation, end of story. Leahy finally brings Mueller before the Senate, and he tells him to his face, I in no way, shape, or form believe that Bruce Ivins could have possibly done this by himself. If you look at what was needed to pull off the anthrax attacks, there's no way that Bruce Ivins could have done it alone if he had anything to do with it. And that was used as a pretext to make more biowarfare. So in 2005, you had 700 scientists sign a petition to Fauci saying, you got to stop funding this dangerous lab work. It's distorting our scientific field. This agenda that you're pursuing. And Fauci dismisses these guys, saying the US public has told us through their elected representatives, this is the Cheney Bush junta that he's talking about, have told us that they want this lab work done. And this lab work could either get done through other channels, meaning the CIA or the military, or the NIH can have a seat at the table. And we're going to have a seat at the table. And so they flooded the scientific establishment with this cash and distorted the field. And I think that's a recurring pattern. We're seeing it now with the data centers, right?
Right.
People are not being Luddites in some stupid way by opposing data centers. They are not being Luddites. If they're
who just read that headline? I just saw that. The American, it might have been I think it was the Wall Street Journal that specifically said, Americans are becoming Luddites, and you're seeing this press to push back against the rebellion, against flock cameras, against data centers.
Right. It's because technology is continuously manipulated for insidious ends by the political and military and economic establishments. Exactly. Right. When I was a kid, we were supposed to have flying cars, and everybody was supposed to have enough food to eat, and we'd all have our rocket packs, and and greenery would be everywhere. Well, that didn't turn out because of the corporate and military and corrupt political control over the technology, and that's completely distorted how it's used. So it's used for everything from militarization to manipulating people's, making them addicted to big tech platforms. It's preying on every kind of human weakness in order to commodify and manipulate people. So people, I think, are catching on to this, but it's far from being a Luddite. It is rebelling against the establishment.
All right. Well, I have one last question. Then, Russ, if you want to finish it off, you can. However.
Sorry,
you like.
I gotta shorten my answers. I gotta be more of a politician and less of a journalist here.
You're good.
It's not. Don't worry, we're not running that kind of an operation.
Yeah. Don't worry.
I was gonna say though, you want to see not quite what you're talking about, but I went to
not that Norm Finkelstein should run for office. So please, because that we would not have time for. But you're fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in New York and I knocked on Norm Finkelstein's door like 30 years ago. This is how naive I was, wondering if he, could help me find a job. And he totally cracked up like, I have any power to get you a job.
You'd be fired from Nathan's within 20 minutes if I recommended you. Oh God, can I find you a job? Yeah, you've come to the wrong place, my friend. Yes, I believe that. Yeah, he's not the best guy for hiring advice, I would say. But yeah, it's pretty funny. Well, yeah, I have one more question for you. Like I said, and then Russ, if you have anything else, feel free. But this kind of speaks to, I think, the ethos of your campaign. Perhaps you write in this tweet, "We must end the American empire as quickly and peacefully as possible. It will be replaced by the Usonian republic." Now, I've long kind of been saying here that, as much as like we say what we can and we do what we can and we try and educate ourselves and spread the word as best we can, that, big problems like Israel, Palestine are just not going to be solved through the American political system because, in my opinion, the American system is just too rotten at this point to solve any of these big problems before they explode into problems that are beyond what we can manage. So I've often kind of said that I think the most noble project as an American political actor would be to sort of figure out how can we wind down the imperial American project as peacefully as possible. So I really appreciated that statement. Now, as far as the second part there, the Usonian Republic. See, this is where our backgrounds kind of differ because you're smart and I'm stupid. So I don't know what the Usonian Republic is. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that is the future as you see it?
I got into Frank Lloyd Wright, who's everybody knows the name, but people haven't actually looked into his writing and thinking. And he wrote, he's an architect, of course, so he mostly built buildings or designed buildings, but he also wrote extensively about democracy. He was a pacifist, and he objected in his writings, I noted, to the term America. He was like, how the hell are we calling ourselves America? What about the rest of the hemisphere, Brazil, Canada, Mexico, or it's ridiculous. And he adopted this term Usonia and Usonian, and he actually started one of his architectural styles is called Usonian, where he have these what we would call middle class homes for people that are very nature oriented, that are designed specifically for the location, part of his organic architecture. And I still haven't figured out exactly where the term originated. I found somebody using it in 1903, a Scottish poet, a Scottish American poet, who's also a fascinating figure. Law is his name, and he developed a world clock, the first clock that could tell you what the time was in 200 cities. He was in Philadelphia, I think. Anyway, so there were these figures in the 19th century and possibly even earlier, in the 1900s, I should say, and possibly even earlier, questioning use of the term America exclusively for the United States. And I think that that's the kind of transformation that we need now, to say we don't want to be an empire. We will be a law-abiding, functioning democracy. I can see, a lot of problems endemic in the, U.S. system as it stands, but the Bill of Rights is an important document, and it's big problem with it is just not being used. Big problem with it is, I as a journalist tried to push the envelope as to what I can do as a journalist. And if I got into Congress, I want to push the envelope as to what a member of Congress can do, right? People are calling the attack on Iran unconstitutional. Nobody's saying Trump should be impeached for it. There were even members of Congress that said that Biden's bombing of Yemen was unconstitutional. Nobody stepped up or even thought about impeaching him for it. So, I mean, I want to be a clean glass of water that is able to call out both sides on their hypocrisies. And I think that there's a case that I'd be the only one actually standing up for the rule of law, for what, they're all pledged to abide by the Constitution. Well, why aren't they? I don't view myself as a fringe figure in that way. I view myself as somebody who is calling out the system to abide by its own rhetoric.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, I know there are a lot of neocons and warmongers, imperialists, quite frankly, who, when you say something like you want to wind down the American empire, they interpret this as this assault on Western civilization itself, as you want the fall of the West. And it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't mean you want people to
Right.
suffer. It means the
Well,
opposite, actually. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It means the total
Yeah.
opposite of that. But there's another fascinating aspect of Frank Lloyd Wright. You have Trump now wanting to put up, expand the White House and put up this triumphant arch and everything. I mean, Frank Lloyd Wright objected to Washington, D.C. being an imperial capital based on Rome. He's like, what the hell does this have to do with us? We should, it should be organic architecture. It should come from the land. It should come from the people and their varied. So if you look at his work, his stuff in California, it looks like Aztec temples. He used adobe, Native American stuff in some of his work. It was influenced by Japan. The Guggenheim Museum, the twirly thing.
Right.
It's based on designs that he made for Baghdad, based on the Tower of Babel. So he was very much at home in the world, and wanted Usonia to have a culture of its own. And that's not the death of the West. That is a rebirth of the United States of America, so that it isn't just simply copying from Imperial Rome or the British Empire. And I think that that's ultimately what the U.S. needs to do.
I think a lot of what people are struggling with right now, the winter of our discontent, is the question of whether the system is even reformable in that way. I think a lot of people at this point feel like anything short of total collapse and starting over it's not achievable. You can't fix this. It's too far gone, and it's too fundamentally flawed.
I totally understand that impulse, and I've certainly felt that at times, but I feel we have to try to do everything that we can do, A, and B, this system is so nefarious and it has no moral limits. How is that going to end? These guys got nukes. These guys got all kinds of weapons, some of which we know about, some of which we don't know about. So how do we bring, like we were saying earlier, how do we end the U.S. empire as quickly and peacefully as possible? I mean, who's got the guns? What's that going to look like if we go into a system collapse? How many people are going to die in that scenario or be killed? I mean, I think the system is tending towards either that or some kind of perpetual subjugation with a techno-feudalism. Right. It's either going to be destruction or subjugation. And obviously, I think anybody with a conscience is trying to find another path that avoids both of those things.
That's a great answer. I agree with you 100%. It's part of what we've been saying, recently as well, which is that, any accelerationism that happens now is going to be acceleration towards fascism, which we already are in an accelerationist moment towards fascism. Like it's not a question. Like the accelerationists are the ones driving us into this techno-feudal hellscape. And you mentioned the Bill of Rights, which I do think is hugely important. I do think the Constitution is important. I think the sentiments in the Declaration are important. Like, I'm not a religious person, so I don't literally believe God created man and endowed us with inalienable rights. But I do think the government should act as though that happened. Like, I think they should treat human rights that way. Like, they should suppose that happened. I'm for
it's a higher authority.
Like, I'm all for it. Even if I only believe in it as a hypothetical, I'm still all for it. So I do think like there are certain political proclamations associated with the founding of this country that are worth preserving. That is not an endorsement of the system writ large. There's obviously needs to be, I think, major systemic changes within it. But I think there's a tendency, as Russ was just talking about, for people to get so driven into despair that they feel like the best thing to do, the most moral thing to do, is to disengage so it all crumbles and then we build back up. And
or to push it towards crumbling.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I can certainly pick, and the first time this year, I've got a little bit of a garden, It took a little time to build that. So I think people doing things like that and having community gardens and
Yes, you said
building
the
up
same thing.
community structures and stuff like that, mutual aid and all those kinds of things are really important if there is a collapse, and it just leads to a richer, fuller life when you have those methods of solidarity. So I certainly accept that part of it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it leads to a richer, fuller life.
Right.
And when you create these things for your community, you're giving other people a richer, fuller life. And at the end
Absolutely.
of the day, that may be all we can do. And I think, sorry, no, please.
No, I mean, that's part of what I want to do with this campaign. I mean, I feel like so many campaigns try to leech off of movements. And I'm trying to do the exact opposite. This, on the face of it, this is a fairly pro-establishment district, and I am trying to give local activists here a reason to knock on their neighbors' doors, and to say, we're the guy in Congress now is pro-genocide, pro-corporate, this, and then they build more and more of a relationship with the people that they're knocking the doors of. I want to be creating PDFs that people can, photocopy and pass out in front of strategic locations in the district and engage people that way to reclaim the public square. I mean, literally winning this is, I think it's possible. I'm trying to, but a deeper goal is to reinvent what a campaign can look like as an instrument for mobilization and for fostering those things.
All right. Well, tell people where they can go to learn more about your campaign.
Thank you. SamHusseini.com is the campaign. We got volunteer stuff that folks can be plugging into. Obviously, they can contribute if they're able to do that. It links to several articles on my Substack, so you can get to my Substack from there if you like as well. And the PDFs that I mentioned will be coming. There's phone banking folks can do if they're outside of the district. If people know people inside of the district, Maryland 4th District, it's mostly Prince George's County, the area just to the east of Washington, D.C. Ping your friends who might live around here and urge them to get active in this.
All righty. Well, that's samhusseini.com. Sam, we've both been following your work for a long time, and it was really great to meet you. And best of luck on the campaign trail, and we'd love to have you back sometime soon.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you, gentlemen.
All right.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam. Have a great night. Sam Husseini, everybody. Round of applause in the chat. That was great. Been following Sam's work for so long. Finally got to talk to him. So that was great. And yeah, see, so when idiots like us talk about community gardens, you laugh at us. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There's a smart person saying that yeah. Take it from a smart person if you don't.
We're like
believe us.
Forrest Gump. We usually stumble into doing something smart.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So there you go. Sam Husseini, great to see Sam. We got Jake in the booth with us tonight. Round of applause for Jake. We got Jezzy and the mod crew holding it down in the chat. 1696 in the YouTube chat. We got 613 over on Rumble. 606 in the like column. So make sure you smash that like button so we can get an even bigger crowd in here tonight. Appreciate you all once again. You want to take some super chats and some Rumble rants? What was it? Oh, yeah. You got something you want to plug, right? Your Death of a Salesman.
Oh, yeah. But you got to pull it up. I didn't have a slide or anything.
Yeah.
Dark Matter Zombie, he brought up, see, years ago, I was thinking about checking out the whole Detroit scene because I know you've got the perfect recipe for an art scene there. A lot of very cheap real estate. There was a trend. It was about, I don't know, man. I mean, at this point, I think it's kind of done. But about 10 years ago, a lot of people were packing up and going to Detroit for that reason. There was a big theater out in Dumbo where their signature was kind of, they had an indoor man-made lake under their audience seating area. Is that Galapagos? It was Galapagos. They bought up, they made a deal with the governor. They got all kinds of tax breaks. They bought up like 2 blocks of industrial property in Detroit. I should follow up. I'm curious about what they're doing out there now. But yeah, I don't see it. It seems to have passed. There was a moment there where a lot of people were running out there. Yeah, so I dropped my Death of a Salesman review today by demand. I asked in a post, like, do you guys want a out of the theater review of this? So I did it. That will probably be the last review for a while. I don't know any movies being released that are going to get the chuds going like the Odyssey did, such that I feel like it's worth reviewing. And there are no like big event shows like that I plan on going to. Like I might do some discount matinees of like, Buena Vista Social Club, but I'm not going to review that. The next thing I'll probably review, I actually got tickets for it, the Sam Rockwell View from a Bridge with Alfred Molina in December, but that's a few months from now. So this is probably the last review for quite a while. What will start dropping now on the channel, if you're not already subscribed, are my Asia videos, which now I'm going to start back at Thailand, and they're going to be in chronological order of the entire trip. So those will start to get edited and put together. It's thousands of videos. When I was doing Jimmy's show in July, it was just a little too much bandwidth. But now those will start coming out. So check it out. That review was fun. I covered everything from Clifford Odets to Jackie Gleason and Rod Serling in that review.
There you go. YouTube.com at Russ on the Road NYC. All right. You want to take some super chats over there?
Yes. All right. Cesar. Sam is an amazing journalist, and I get his heart's desire to run as a green, but unfortunately, he'd be much, much more successful running as a D. It's funny with these kinds of things. No matter what you choose, there's going to be a bunch of people who say you should have done the other thing, right? You run as a green, got a bunch of people telling you run as a Democrat. You run as a Democrat, entryist. You should be running as a green. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Honestly,
it sounds like in his case, he decided to run pretty late in the game. By that time, the primaries are already passed. Like he made it sound like he just decided this about a month ago.
And hey, I agree with the point that you need outside pressure coming from somewhere. Otherwise, what leverage do you have with them? That's why, you say, I mean, I think we're in agreement with him that it's all of the above. It depends on the situation.
Right. Depends on the situation.
It depends. There are times, a lot of times, when the most strategic thing you could do is withhold your vote. I still feel that way about the Kamala Trump thing because, again, leverage. What leverage do you have if you have a vote blue, no matter who posture? Now, you have some people who've taken that to don't vote blue no matter who. And that's really seems to be the point of contention. What's the phrase? The narcissism of small differences, right?
Right.
Battlefield, could you guys please educate Hard Lens Media about legal mindset? Kit loves quoting that loser. Well, that would be impossible because I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Neither one of us know. And Keaton actually follows that stuff more than I do. Me shoot skeet super sticker. Thank you, my friend. Kuznetsky Bassane in 2006, after donations to his campaign fund from private equity and hedge fund firms, Schumer disappeared Senate hearings on carried interest. Well, that's no surprise, is it? Look, now that we have more time, now that we have more time, there are a lot of video essays I want to do. I definitely want to do one built on the conceit that I've mentioned a few times, that movie Speak No Evil, where I say, why'd you do this to us? Because you let us. I think of that all the time when I look at the American political situation. JB, best show on the internet, the Dissident Duo. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
All right, you got some over there?
And we agree. Appreciate it. Vienticus Prime. Everything's a scam. Everything's a lie. Everything's hypocrisy, and so you don't comply. Thanks, Vienticus. Appreciate that. Eric Rousseau, the sailors on the USS Lincoln are so weak and demoralized that they can't even do gay stuff. Good one. Let's see. Vientica says there's a saying in the Navy: it isn't gay if you're underway. It's only queer if you're tied to the pier. Thank you, Vienticus. Eric Rousseau, Andrew Wilson should stick to getting insulted by Wes Watson. Candace is way too much for him. Yeah, I watched about 15 minutes of that debate and I got bored and I turned it off.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
We're like the same person.
Yeah.
Because we both had about the same limit on that.
Yeah,
interview.
I was excited to watch it, but then I was like, it's just fucking boring. So
about
I turned it off.
15 minutes. That was about me. Yeah, about 15 minutes. I was like, I got
like I
things to
checked
do.
in from time to time because I was out and about. So like I would check back in, and there's some highlights that went around that I think are worth talking about. I think Clint Russell did a pretty good piece on it that I watched. Like again, the first 5 minutes of. No insult to Clint Russell, he's good, but I just. It just didn't. The topic just did not hold my interest. I mean, that was a 4-hour debate? Yeah, it was very long. The Corn Pop Chronicles says Abiding is officially available on Kindle, 99 cents. What if the most important man in every room that changed America was a numbers runner from Wilmington, Delaware?
That's a great pitch. That's a great elevator pitch.
That is a great elevator pitch. Eric Rousseau, which U.S. enemy state has the hottest women? Russia, China, Iran, or Cuba?
I got
Cuba.
a weakness for Slavic women, man.
So you're going Russia. All right. I
I have a weakness for those broads.
Yeah. He's got a weakness. Iceberg Slim audience, the historical fiction audience, the people who read Eric Roth and Walter Mosley who want something that lives in that neighborhood but never been to that address. There you go. More pitches there. Vienticus Prime, respect the process going into your ass. Thank you. Vienticus Prime. Why should Israel prosper while your family suffers? Join the American Communist Party, acpus.join, because the future belongs to the working class. Thanks, Master Yoda. You think you can get the guy who gives us $10? It'd be nice. That's almost an ad read there. That was about 8 seconds. Devanes. Would happily join the military again if I could shoot at IDF soldiers. No one else. In a fucking rage, those sick fucks. We're talking about the West Bank today. We have some stories.
Yeah, you're gonna be in more of a rage by the time we're done.
Ask Sam the most important question of our day. What is a woman? Thank you, Eric Rousseau. I say disengage, get off my lawn, America campaign. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. All right, we're gonna move right on along. Couple things. Number one, on this Tuesday, we will be doing a show at 1 p.m. We're gonna switch the Thursday show out for Tuesday this week because I will be on the West Coast starting Wednesday, and I'll be going Wednesday through Sunday. So Russ has the great Tusker filling in as his co-host a week from today on Sunday. But then before I leave, we're going to get one more show in as the duo. So there will be no show Thursday. There will be a show this Tuesday, and then I'll be off from Wednesday. The occasion for the trip is my lovely wife Amanda's 40th birthday, which actually is today. So happy birthday to my wife. We celebrated mostly yesterday, although
Older
we did
woman.
some stuff today. Yeah, older woman. Yeah, 3 months older than me. She's 3 months older than me. So she made it before I did. So that's the cause for the trip. But yeah, we celebrated. Most of the celebrating was yesterday, but then we did some stuff today as well. And we're going out to California. We got some family out there. So that'll be fun. So for that reason, this Tuesday will be an episode. We're going back to Tuesdays for 1 week only, special events. Sign up to our Substack so you don't miss the newsletters. If you're on our newsletter, you will get an email a couple hours before we go live every time, so you won't miss one. So join that newsletter. It's free. Join it so you never miss a stream. All right. Let's move right on along.
Okay. So you might have heard that the sailors on the USS Lincoln are having a hard time, but it's not true. It's completely not true. They're not even saying that. It's all made up.
U.S. service members are concerned about the conditions on board the USS Lincoln.
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not. That ship is moving right now, or very shortly, and it's being replaced with another very similar ship. No. Not nearly long enough. Thank you, everybody.
Deployment's not long enough. Says the man with 5 deferments.
Yep.
5 deferments. They haven't been out there. No, it's fine.
That's
There's
the Roy
nothing
Cohn
wrong.
playbook. Our last film club, we did something involving Roy Cohn. We said this is where Trump learned this shit. No matter how wrong you are, just no, fuck me, fuck you. Nope.
Yep.
Oh, they're there too long? No, they're not there long enough. Like, no matter what the reality is, just say the exact opposite of what any decent person will be expected to concede.
And actually, I have an advantage that Roy Cohn didn't have because the country's become completely moronic since his day. So there are a lot of very broken young men out there who, if you just say stuff, they'll believe it because they have nothing else.
Right.
In Roy Cohn's day, there was some prosperity and hope.
Yeah.
It was harder for him. So, hey, some people say that the acting Secretary of the Navy, Hung Kao, is the most popular with the ladies of any acting Secretary of the Navy in history. Hung Kao. He put out a statement here. The USS Abraham Lincoln crushed their deployment and will return home soon as part of a planned rotation. Details will come, but let me be clear. The safety and security of our sailors and Marines always comes first. Well, that is very clear from your actions, my friend. Mission accomplishment, troop welfare. This is how we lead. To make it clear, there's a lightly edited version of his statement. There's a little bit more boilerplate in there. Unfortunately, the media are trying to paint our warriors as victims. That's cute. That's cute. The people who are standing up for our abused soldiers are actually in the wrong. You know why? Because they're making them sound like girly men and women. Not only is that dishonest, but it takes away the focus on the enemy, traitors, and the threat it poses against our nation, people, and way of life. Here is the truth. 266 days deployed, 200 days in a combat zone, 10,000 plus sorties, 1.5 million pounds of ordnance dropped, and retention rates on the Abe are amongst the highest of all carriers. Can I ask something? How exactly would you leave the ship when the ship has not been on land in 266 days? Yeah. Like, how do retention rates even enter into it? I am assuming, I've never been in the military. I'm assuming if you try to quit in that situation, that's a court martial. I'm assuming that's not an option while you're on board that ship. It is also true. A small number of mental health cases were treated with no loss of life. Meal plans were adjusted when fresh resupply was unavailable without a single meal being missed. Yeah, you got a rotten piece of fish, but you got it. You got you didn't miss the meal. Calls home were limited when the operational threat was too high. There is no question our young men and women have been pushed to their limits, but they have never broken. They are rightly tired, but have never been out of the fight. However, it is clear, knowing the whole story, our force and their families are not victims. They are the epitome of American strength and resilience. You see, you should not be trying to get better treatment for service people because you're making them into victims. Get it? Stop talking about it. Get it? So when the USS Abraham Lincoln pulls into the pier, join me and stand proudly with a grateful heart and give our sailors and Marines the hero's welcome they deserve, the kind of welcome only Hung Kao can give.
Yeah, exactly.
Semper Fi and Hoo-yah.
See, this is what this is what I'm talking about. I won't speak for you. This is what I talk about when I talk about how the United States, you're living in Israel, right? You wonder why progress is slow because you're living in a country whose population can be brainwashed into believing that, into reading that with a straight
Can
face.
they though? Because
Well,
nobody's buying that.
thankfully, fewer and fewer people. But there was a time not too long ago, post 9/11, where, yeah, that kind of shit, you have to mindlessly endorse the party line or else it's because you don't respect the military.
Right.
Like any questioning of management of the military equals ingratitude or an undermining of the military. It's complete emotional messaging that is meant to appeal to people who have the psyche of a child. Like
Well,
if you believe, like if you take that seriously, you have the emotional fortitude of a fucking child.
Yeah, but you're really down to, I think, a small minority of people now. Like no one's buying this anymore.
Thankfully, that does seem to be the case. Yes, that is if there is a silver lining, that would be it. Yes, I would agree.
All right, so shaky drunk Pete Hegseth responded to some of these complaints. Hearing from the troops on the front line in CENTCOM, air, land, sea, including the USS Abraham Lincoln, incredible Americans on a historic mission. Man, the reckless and shameless American media completely and intentionally misrepresent the USS Abraham Lincoln. The brave sailors of that strike group are very proud of their tough and historic mission. They embody resilience and excellence. At Department of War, at U.S. Navy, at CENTCOM, have their back. Not according to their families. Okay, so I want to be clear. It's unconfirmed, but there seems to be enough poop to indicate a big stinky pile of poop. So I'm going to go with it. Flashpoint, the sewage system briefly malfunctioned aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, with poop water reportedly flooding living quarters of some sailors. Now, again, that is unconfirmed, but this video, it's not clear what ship it comes from. But this is somebody who says this is from their husband's deployment. This is a video that they sent to their wife.
No, that's I have to that's wrong. That's the Patreon bonus footage from the RFK cooking show, actually. Disregard, that's misinformation.
Actually, look, I mean, Trump,
out of context.
Trump may seem like he doesn't care about the sailors, but he did go to clean up the sinks there. They did get Trump on board that ship. It's right there, taking care of our sailors. So why has the supply situation gotten this bad? This is the Hormuz report by way of the New York Times. The U.S. Navy has been forced to move its entire Gulf supply network to Diego Garcia, more than 2,200 miles away, after Iranian strike completely destroyed its main logistics hubs in Bahrain, the UAE, and Oman during the first days of the war, per the New York Times. Within days of the war's start, Iranian missiles and drones struck the Navy's main logistics hub in Bahrain, destroying decades of infrastructure. The attack forced the Navy to relocate its supply point to Diego Garcia, a British-controlled island nearly 2,200 miles from the Gulf of Oman. The longer supply route has directly contributed to the severe shortages aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. Food, hygiene items, and basic supplies have become scarce, adding to the strain on a crew that has spent over 250 days at sea without a single Liberty port. Iran also reportedly fired 2 ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia on March 20th, a clear message that even the backup hub is also within reach. So it seems like that might be part of why the supply situation is getting so severe. This is the kind of thing that a technocratic but competent ghoul like Lloyd Austin probably told melting brain Biden. And that might be part of why he didn't do this.
Yeah, it's not too hard to figure out. I mean, 22, think about that, 2,200 miles.
Right.
That's from here to from New York, where we are now, to West Texas. That's the fucking
by ship.
That is the
You got to
distance
resupply by ship.
By ship, 2,200 is almost the length of the entire country.
Yep.
You know, this wasn't like difficult to foresee.
Sure. Well, you got a shaky drunk as your Secretary of War. Secretary of War. It's going to be one of the first things they put back when this administration goes out. It's going to once again be the Department of Defense.
Yeah.
All right. So this is from Midas Touch. Not just the Lincoln. Families describe human waste, no food, no end in sight across multiple ships. Now, Aaron Parnas has kind of become the go-to person for these families. They've been sending him their texts and Instagram messages, so he's compiled some of these. Since Midas Touch began reporting on conditions aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, messages have poured in from military families and service members across multiple ships and even multiple branches. Taken together, they paint a picture of a crisis that extends well beyond a single carrier. All sources below are being kept anonymous to protect them and their loved ones from retaliation. So just a few highlights. Hey, Aaron, I'm a service member on a ship out here with the Lincoln currently, and I can, in fact, tell you that they are not making anything up on the Lincoln. We have it bad as well, but not quite as bad as them yet. It's only month 5 going on 6 for us, but eventually it will be bad. We have not seen land since being out here due to Iran conflict. Another one. Hi, Aaron. My son was on the USS Abraham Lincoln for 11 months. He was able to get off at the last minute. Lucky him. He had finished 5 years with the fire squadron top hatters working on F-18 fighter jets. The conditions on the ship were horrendous. Early on, their water system went down. They weren't able to take showers, wash their clothes. When they did get the system up and running, they had to take whole showers. I'm not clear what she means by that. Maybe horse baths. I don't know. They ran out of supplies quite often. When supply ships couldn't bring stuff back to the ship, before he left the ship, the toilets were backed up and overflowing. There was about a half a foot of human waste throughout the floor in the restrooms, with 200 sailors and at any given time using those restrooms. Hi, Aaron. There's another one. Hi, Aaron. I tried to message on Instagram, but I kept receiving an error message. My brother and his fiance are both in the Navy, and I can confirm what you have been reporting. His fiance is on the USS George H.W. Bush, not Lincoln, and was recently back in the U.S. for a family emergency, so we were able to talk to her. She told us how they have virtually no food, water, or soap. They've been out at sea for 136 days with no end in sight. Morale is low, and everyone is miserable. It's heartbreaking. There's from another ship, family member here. Family and friends on the USS Boxer have been out so long and aren't receiving care packages. Women have run out of feminine hygiene items due to no resupplies happening. They pack enough and some extra for deployment, but not for all the extensions and no port calls. They were begging us to send them extra pads and tampons so they could share them out, but then none of our packages got delivered. And in part, there's a letter someone sent. My husband has told me that people who have more than 20 years of military service are saying this is the worst deployment they have ever experienced. This is someone serving on the Lincoln. I understand that there are always challenges during a deployment, but hearing this from experienced service members is extremely concerning. I am sharing this because these service members need someone to speak for them. They are exhausted and feel like they are not being heard, and they desperately need help. I am sharing this because I believe these concerns need to be heard, not because I want to put my husband or anyone else aboard the ship at greater risk. Okay, so this is the kind of feedback you're getting from some of these derpers out there. America, America, stand off script. As a Navy veteran who's been on deployments the last over 9 months, ship breaks, shit gets fixed. Those cupcakes joined the Navy and they knew exactly what they were getting into. They can either suck it up and get back to serving this great nation of ours with honor, or get their panty-wearing asses the fuck out to Navy and go home to their mommies and eat their fruity pebbles in the corner of their safe space. Yeah. There's a lot of that.
I bet my bottom dollar that guy has a meltdown when his air conditioner stops working for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
The air conditioner in his truck breaks down. He has a nervous breakdown.
Well, and how much you want to bet this guy voted for a guy with 5 deferments and still fervently backs that guy who got us into this war for no fucking good reason at all.
Right.
Joseph Gelman. Maybe someone should share with you snowflakes what bathroom toilets looked like on World War II ship. Suck it up, Buttercup. Now, listen. Part of the reason I'm including this, I don't think we got a lot of people in our audience who would make this mistake. Don't join the fucking military. Do not join the military. These people do not give a shit about you. As Hemingway put it very well, dying for your country is a patriotic fairy tale. In reality, you will bleed out in the mud like a butchered dog for absolutely nothing. Beautifully said. Beautifully. Yes. And hey, proof is in the numbers, right? 20% of the male homeless population are veterans. 5.3% of the homeless adult population are veterans. 51% of individual homeless veterans have disabilities. 50% have serious mental illness. 70% have substance abuse problems. Okay? That's how much they give a shit about the service people when they're done with them. They will wipe their ass with you when you're in the service, and they will kick you to the curb when you're out of the service. I know a lot of people say, well, they signed up for the military, they have it coming. I don't think that's productive. A lot of the most effective anti-war voices in history have been veterans because they see from the front what a lie it is. But at the same time, you should use things like this to point out, especially to the young bloods, yo, don't listen to that recruiter when they come to you and they paint you a picture of how bright a future you're going to have in the military, especially with these fruitcakes running things. There has never, certainly in my lifetime, probably in American history, there's never been such a level of incompetence at the top of the military as you have right now. There was never a good reason to join in the past. But I understand. I come from that kind of neighborhood, man. A lot of people join for the college money, and they paint you a picture of the career opportunities you're going to have coming out and all of the skills you're going to learn. And it's, they prey on poor, naive kids, economically disadvantaged poor kids, and they get them in. And is it really worth being disabled for the rest of your life, mentally crippled for the rest of your life? And now that is much more likely than it's been in a very long time. And you cannot even rely on the people running the military now to meet the basic requirements of food and hygiene. Whatever their denials, I've never seen all of these families coming out and complaining like this. Most of these military families are pretty gung-ho, semper fi, hoo-yah kind of people. I don't think you'd be seeing all these military families speaking out like this just because they're weak or they're snowflakes. This is because you're getting exceptional levels of neglect of the military that is not, as that one woman wrote about her husband's experience, people who've been in the military 20 years are saying this is not normal. This is not how they normally treat the military members. And I don't think they normally treat them great, but I think the basic competence level is just high enough to understand, well, if you want them doing all these sorties, they need proper food and hygiene in order to keep them going. You just don't want them like a machine. You don't want them to break down. When you got a shaky drunk at the top, all bets are off.
Yeah, on the one hand, as we talked about a little bit earlier, the jingoism of, well, you don't think these troops aren't man enough to handle this, do you? Like, that's not working. So that's a positive. On the other hand, though, politics has become so degraded that this is not the scandal it would be at any other time. Imagine 20 years ago this happened. This would be wall-to-wall coverage on the media all day, every day. And I'm not saying the media hasn't covered it. They have, to be fair. But this would be a major scandal embroiling all of Washington in more normal times. Like, you can't prop these people up as American heroes and then leave them stranded on the sort of like event horizon of ships here in the middle of nowhere and just expect them to deal with it without this being like a major scandal. It is true that like these last 10 years have really just kind of broken people to the point where I feel like there's no floor anymore. There is no scandal that will shock the conscience of the public anymore. And that is a function of just how broken this country really is. And that's why it's, to your point there about, people holding it against these soldiers for signing up to do the dirty work of the empire. Again, I just have to drive home the metaphor. You're living in Israel. We live on settlements in the woods that we stole from the native people. We are just a couple hundred years older than Israel as a society, but a lot of the same pathologies that plague Israeli society plague ours as well. One of them is that we glorify war. We glorify killing people. It's like, Graham Plattner said he wished he would have fought in the Indian Wars, right? We are a warlike lot. Our people are born and bred
was the Plattner
to like
left.
war. Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, our people are born and bred to like war and fetishize war. And so, you can lament that, but to pass judgment on individual people for being swept up into that as a whole, when you broaden your perspective out, I agree with you. It's not a productive place to be. It's tempting, of course, it's tempting, but it's not a productive place to be because that is really a function of a culture that we've been steeped in for a very long time, and it's why politics in general is extremely frustrating. And when you see a story like this, you just wonder, okay, will this be the thing that snaps people out of this blind worship of the military? Because you see here how expendable these soldiers are to the people who sing their praises for a living, right? They don't actually care about them, and this has been so obvious for so long. And you wonder at what point do we hit that tipping point where people start to understand this? And at the very least, I mean, demand better. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing how you see, people atop this administration speak with such reverence for the troops while you have this going on. And Trump just, total Roy Cohn mode. No, they haven't been out there long enough.
It's fine. It's fine. Well, we remember the Romans quite unfairly as these decadent orgy mongers, and they didn't become the world's most powerful empire that way. They were unusually disciplined, practical. That's why you don't have any great art that comes out of Rome. They were engineers. Right. They were engineers. They were bureaucrats. They were very logical, practical, conservative in the broad sense of that term, kind of people. After a while, oh, Caligula made his horse a senator. Well, what you gonna do?
Right.
It didn't happen in a day,
Right.
but over time, shit gets weird, man. And the weirder it gets, the more inured to that weirdness people become. How much weirdness you're gonna be shocked at? After a while, the weirdness becomes the norm.
Right. I mean, as these stories, civilizations tell themselves, become more and more accepted generation to generation, right? The line between mythology and history is blurred to the point where,
Right.
you can kind of get away with anything because, jingoism, patriotism, whatever you want to call it, becomes a religion, that is just not as subject to like rational scrutiny as a newer, more untested ethos. And
Right.
that's what's kind of happened here. And now you're at the point where, unfortunately, it's too late in the sense that this war has already been hatched, and the only thing that will save us now is for this government to just call the whole thing off. But doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Well, some reporting, Marjorie Taylor Greene claims that they're talking about using nukes. She says she knows this for a fact.
Well, hey, it would not surprise me. I mean, something's got to give. I mean, we've said this the entire time. Something's got to give. You can't, obviously, one thing that should be completely off the table if it hasn't been, it has been already to anybody with a brain that's been following this even remotely closely. But okay, ground troops clearly off the table now. You see, if this ship is stranded and the closest you can get any support to it is 2,200 miles away, that tells you right now ground troops
Right.
are not an option. It's
Right.
not on the table.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so if that's not on the table and retreat isn't on the table because the Israelis will not allow it to be on the table, then yeah, you're in an impossible situation where something's got to give. And could that something be a nuclear exchange? Now, it's not really difficult to imagine a scenario in which that is how this gets settled, if for no other reason than through process of elimination. How else is it going to get settled? There's no other way out that anybody is going to entertain. So
Right.
yeah, it doesn't shock me that they're saying nukes are on the table. All right. Let's move right on along here. We'll take some Rumble rants. Eric Rousseau: does my 3 weed plants count as a garden? The community better not F with them. I'm sure they will accommodate you, my friend, especially out there in California. Word is that Loomer is the community garden in the DJT administration. Huh? Funny. Ugly old broad says stuff. I'm late again. Next week I want to raid you. Hope that's okay. You're my fave young people. What do you mean raid us? Do you have a stream that you do? Do you stream? Do you raid our stream? Kirk the 11, thanks for the $20. Keaton, happy birthday to your wife. Thank you. Enjoy your time off. Oh no, hung cow again. I usually never watch the part where the sailors are just having drinks, and well, yeah, that is one of the funniest names ever, hung cow. Del Cisco, exceptional show, exceptional t-shirt, Russ. There you go. That's the Roger Waters t-shirt, right? You got today?
Yep.
Nice. Mark Pugliese, Larry Johnson said the Department of War cut the U.S. fleet of 4 supply ships to save money. Interesting. Vienticus Prime, I'm pretty sure that British-controlled island was the same one they said got struck by Iranian missiles right before the U.S. ships created a blockade 1,000 miles closer, out of range. Ugly Old Broad says, hung cow and keg's breath are 2 Trump stooges. My husband was in the Navy for 20 years. He knows what being on naval ships are like and is very disappointed for those sailors. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how like every possible constituency you can alienate, they've managed to alienate. Now the like military people as well. Vienticus Prime, digits are the most hated stereotype in the military. Digits? Or I don't know. I don't get that. See, I'm not a military man. I'm 100% service connected disabled. I'll be 50 soon and already got 1 foot in the grave. It ain't worth it. You're not even 50 yet? Especially since the raise in disability pay certainly ain't meeting inflation. Well, thank you, Vienticus. Sorry to hear that. I always assumed you were older. Why did I assume that? Maybe you have a wise soul. You're an old soul. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. I never took you for being part of the under 50 demo. All right, you got some super chats over there?
Hang on. Just trying to grab this. Yeah. So if you follow my channel, there's a short there where a woman tries to teach me different variations of ma in Vietnamese. It didn't go well. So no, hung cow's about the best I'm gonna do with that.
How can you not say it hung cow?
I mean, it is a lot more fun that way, isn't it?
Yeah, hung cow is I'm going with hung cow.
How am I going to pass that up? In Terrorbank 5000, Sam sure had a lot of abstract art on his wall, did he? I hadn't noticed. I guess I just blocked that.
Yo, one person I think told us in the comments of the last video that Russ is going to be offended by his modern art.
Honestly, I was focused on the guest. I didn't even notice that.
I didn't tell him that. I didn't pass that along to Russ because I didn't want him to cancel.
You want me to start
screaming
at Sam Husseini about his taste in art?
Fed. He's like, what do you mean fed?
It's the equivalent of this, having that wall art. He might as well just be doing this for the whole interview.
You accuse him of being a fed. He has no idea what the hell you're talking about. You're like,
no, you know
what?
You know, it's funny, man, because we never really talked about that in depth. You know, I've said with like film, which we have, people get in their feelings about culture shit like they don't get in their feelings about anything else. Yeah, man, you had some people had a fucking total meltdown about that, about abstract art. It's pretty amazing to me to make the argument that not liking abstract art is elitist. That's that's incredible. Look, this is what I mean when I say you have to be taught that that's art. Can you honestly tell me, if you just took a person who had no cultural exposure to it at all, and they walked in a room and saw Rothko, would they think that was art, or would they think someone was cleaning their brushes? Be honest. This is what I mean when I say you have to be told that's art to think it's art. I don't think that is true of a Michelangelo painting. I think you could bring someone from any culture, anywhere on earth, and they're going to see art when they see that. I do not believe that you show a Jackson Pollock to anyone on earth, they're going to understand that that's art. They're going to think somebody was cleaning brushes, right? That's what I mean. Now, that having been said, if you like it, God bless you, man. God bless you. As some people say, that's why Baskin Robbins makes 31 flavors, right? If you like it, God bless. It's not, who cares? What do you care what I think?
Yeah.
Right.
You could tell somebody, just tell somebody they walk in. Just show them a picture of one of the Cupids and say that's called the hung cow. That's what that is. That's the name of it. They call that. Show them the Sistine Chapel. This is the hung cow. By Michelangelo.
I have I was going through because I just I did a post of some of my pictures from Rome. And you're not supposed to, but I did take pictures of the Sistine Chapel because I felt like, fuck you, man. That belongs to the world. That doesn't belong to you, Vatican. I'm taking pictures of that shit. I respect it when I go into like these Buddhist temples. Sometimes they don't want you to take pictures. That's different, man. The Sistine Chapel doesn't belong to anybody as far as I'm concerned. That's the property of the earth. Comrade Cranky. Herman Melville spent 18 months on a whaling ship before he deserted. You know, Moby Dick is my favorite novel. Sailors have always been treated as slaves since antiquity. I mean, there's some truth to that. You know who else was treated as slaves? Slaves. And we don't approve of that anymore, right? We like to think we move past these things.
Who's the painter whose name sounds like Herman Melville? You know, I'm blanking. I know the name. I'm just blanking on it. You know, the all-American painter.
I mean, we're actually
American Gothic. Who's the painter who does that? I'm blanking on his name.
American. Why? See, now you made me blank on it.
Yeah, we're both blanking on it. The channel. Norman
Rockwell.
That's it. Rockwell.
Yes.
Kind of sounds
no.
like
Rockwell didn't do American Gothic.
Which American Gothic is the pitchfork thing, right?
Yeah, but that's not Rockwell.
That's not a Rockwell?
No,
I thought
no,
that
no,
was
no, no.
Rockwell. Oh,
No,
Grant
I
Wood.
fucking I
It
have
looks like
that
a Rockwell.
I have that mug.
Grant Wood did American Gothic. All right, see, I didn't know that. I know the Herman Rockwell.
Grant. Yep,
Should open a
Grant Wood.
museum. Herman Rockwell.
We are look.
But it wasn't right. It looks like a Rockwell.
To demonstrate our amazing taste in art, we are planning on doing an hour on Thomas Kincaid.
All right.
And Bob Ross. That's what we
Norman
really
Rockwell.
like. That's a joke. It's a joke. I'm kidding. David Santucci. Happy birthday, Amanda. You got Keaton to leave the house. That's true love. Yeah. I can't believe it. I can't. That's Keaton.
Oh, yeah.
Keaton
All right,
is
now I'm
going to
looking up.
be traveling twice in like a month. That's got to be a record.
Yeah,
for
that's
this guy.
right.
It's got to
That's
be a
right.
record.
That's right.
Red French Moon. All the people going after Candace Owens should simply watch 12 Angry Men, 1957. She's simply doing what Henry Fonda character did in the movie. We don't go after Candace.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the freedom of want. Yeah, the FDR thing. That was the Norman Rockwell. Yeah, see, I got that confused.
Vito P. The USS Abraham Lincoln is proof positive that you should not subcontract Carnival Cruise for food service and maintenance. Uhuru, comrades. Thank you, Vito.
Oh, hey, speaking of Uhuru, Vito, were you at the bakery opening this Saturday? I hope you made it. Yeah, I would love to hear about that. I'm gonna reach out to those guys to see how that went. That was yesterday. So yeah, hope you had a good time if you went.
You should send a care package of Provel to those sailors.
Yeah.
They'll appreciate it. David Santucci, hopefully we'll get a whole new generation of anti-war vets from the USS Lincoln. I think from this whole deployment, there was actually something, I forgot to throw it in. I can't remember who dropped it now. But it's graffiti on the wing of a plane that's all, I'm being a good goy. I'm ready to die for Israel.
There you go.
All in that vein. JDNPB, they are only working on $1 trillion a year budget. Have you seen the price of food lately? We need 500 billion more if you want to feed them. Yep.
That's right.
Danny D, try the hung cow chicken with sweet and sour sauce.
Yeah.
All right. You got some over there?
I got them. I did my chats for this round, but we're going to pause for a quick word from Rumble Wallets. Few of you guys are tipping us through the Rumble Wallet. We know Abiding uses his Rumble Wallet, which is great to hear because technology has changed the way money works, and a Rumble Wallet takes all that complexity and makes it really simple. So when you sign up for the Rumble Wallet, which you could do by scanning the QR code on the screen right now or by clicking the link in the description, you can choose Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. It's super easy, minutes to set up, connects you right with MoonPay, so you can connect your account with your credit card, your debit card, or your bank, and be up and running, like I said, in just minutes. And once you're set up, you can support your favorite Rumble creators like us directly, and it's a great way to do it because the platform takes 0 fees, so we keep almost 100% of what you donate to us. So it's a great way to send those Rumble rants. It helps us out tremendously. So you can get started now by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the description and downloading the Rumble wallet. From there, you can get your wallet set up, tap buy, and get in the game. So the QR code's on the screen. You can also go to wallet.rumble.com, be set up in minutes, and start using that Rumble wallet on the Rumble platform to support the creator economy here on the home of free speech on the internet. Okay, let's move right on along here. All right. All right, folks. So we're going to talk a little bit about the West Bank and about Gaza. But this came across the feed this morning. Israel's Ben-Gvir calls for nightly kill quota in Gaza. He says there are people there who are not alive. They don't need to live. They are not people. Doing them a favor by calling them people. Now, this is apparently on the podcast started by one of the surviving hostages. I mean, you look at just how crazy this society is. You know, are held captive, and then you start a podcast, and you invite Ben-Gvir on the podcast to talk about how we need to have nightly kill quotas in Gaza. So I'll do my best to keep up with him here. It's not the easiest because he's a fast talker, but we'll do our best. This is no secret. I argued with the head of the government. I think we need to carry out targeted operations in Gaza every single night to take out 30 or 40, not just those who are an immediate threat to you. No, there are people there who are not human beings. They don't need to live. They are not people. I also give them what I call humanity. And I think we need to silence them with treatment, with aid, with the embrace of the Israeli people, but also by fighting these enemies. I literally see all of our Gaza. Amen, says the host. Settlements, not just in Gush Katif, throughout all of Gaza, to encourage more migration, to send them to their countries. And the terrorists, zero migration, zero nothing to kill them one by one. So just once again, I mentioned to Sam Husseini, as we've cited, international law and the definition of genocide. He just repeats all of the points. Yeah, we're going to drive them out, force them out, kill 30, 40 a night, not just those who pose an imminent threat to us. They don't need to live. They're not human beings. Just beyond cartoonishly evil, making it so obvious what their intent is for Gaza. Now, why is he doing this? Well, because it is, of course, campaign season in Israel. So this got the attention of the Associated Press. Israel's Ben-Gvir advocates killing 30 to 40 people in Gaza nightly while speaking to ex-hostage. An extremist Israeli lawmaker and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition publicly advocated for killing 30 to 40 people in Gaza each night. Comments that surfaced Sunday and were quickly shared by Palestinian media. So, yeah, embedded in that first paragraph is something important, because we often hear about how Ben-Gvir is this extremist, even by Israeli standards. He doesn't share a political party with Netanyahu, but he is in the Netanyahu bloc. What these parties do is they form coalitions when they run for office, and that determines the character of the incoming government, depending on which coalition, i.e. bloc of parties, wins a majority control. So just because he's not in Netanyahu's party does not make him an extremist or an outlier by Israeli standards. He's in the Netanyahu bloc. That's why he is an official in the Israeli government right now. Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, made the statement while speaking to a former Gaza-held hostage, Rom Braslovsky, on Braslovsky's podcast. The two were discussing Israel's recovery from the Hamas attack of October 7th, when Ben-Gvir criticized Israel's recent drawdown of strikes in Gaza. It's no secret I disagree with the prime minister, he said. I think targeted assassinations should be carried out in Gaza, taking down 30 to 40 every night, not just those who pose an immediate threat. There are people there, as we saw in the video, who are not worthy of life. They shouldn't live. They're not even people. Israel's domestic media has made scarce mention of the statement, highlighting how once fringe ideologies like Ben-Gvir's are surging in the lead up to Israeli elections on October 27th. So they're not losing momentum. They are gaining momentum. And we're going to see some of the polling surveys at the end of this segment here. Ben-Gvir does not have power over the country's military and cannot order strikes on Gaza. But after operating for decades within Israel's far-right fringe, he is now one of the most influential people in the country. He has substantial control over key parts of Israel's security apparatus, running the country's prisons, where thousands of Palestinians from Gaza and the West Bank are incarcerated, as well as the national police force. He has previously boasted of lessening food rations for Palestinian prisoners. Israel's top court ruled in 2025 that the prison service under Ben-Gvir was depriving Palestinians of a minimum subsistence diet. Until recently, Israel was striking Gaza nearly every day, attacks that have killed over 1,250 people since an October truce deal came into effect, according to Gaza's health ministry. Israeli media last week reported that the authority for carrying out strikes has now been limited to the army's chief of staff, raising the ire of right-wing lawmakers such as Ben-Gvir. And so Haaretz has put out some data here, breakdown by political bloc. These are the recent polling surveys heading into the Israeli elections here. The blue bloc is the opposition bloc, which currently does have a lead over Netanyahu's coalition, but you can see the blue bloc there, the opposition bloc, and the parties highlighted in yellow that comprise that coalition. Netanyahu's Likud party is at 21 points, but Ben-Gvir there, the Otzma Yehudit party, at 8 points. As you can see, still a fairly close race there. And so when they tell you that this guy is a fringe character within Israel, no, he is not. His party is part of the Netanyahu coalition, part of the Netanyahu bloc. They apparently are on the rise within Israel. It's going to be very interesting to see how these elections go in October, because what we're seeing right now is that Ben-Gvir is not nearly as alienated within Israel as American politicians want you to think he is. And the fact that he would go on this podcast and just expressly state, it's nothing new. It's nothing new from him. But even at this point, even when Israel has decided for diplomatic reasons, you know what, we got to pull back on these strikes, there is a significant faction within Israel, maybe even the majority faction. We'll see. We'll see how the vote comes out, who thinks that, no, they need to step on the gas even more than they already have. It's just unfathomably evil. It's nothing that we haven't said before. It feels kind of strange to do these segments now. 3 years on end, we feel like we can't not do these segments. But at the same time, what more can you say? How much more shocking can this be? And how much longer are we supposed to indulge politicians on both in both parties who insist that this country is and must remain a key ally of ours? Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And what more is there to say at this point?
Yeah, I know some people are skeptical when I say this, but I've been saying this for a long time. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. You cannot have people around the world in vast majorities absolutely horrified by the actions of this country. I don't know that anything like this has really happened in world history, like where you had a country that was so blatantly genocidal and evil that was just no matter what public opinion is, that you have all these governments around the world, even though people have a very negative opinion of this country, going, well, you're a terrible person if you say that about this country. Like, I can't think of a parallel. I can't think of anything like this. It's a very weird combination of elements. There's really no historical precedent for this. You're seeing more and more that Israelis are getting attacked around the world, whether tourists. There was just a story, I think it was in Ireland, where like an Israeli camera crew was there to shoot a documentary about anti-Semitism in Ireland, and they got jacked by the people there. Like, we've been saying this for a long time, like that day was going to come where Israelis cannot travel, where there's going to be such an enormous backlash that they cannot safely go to other countries. And that's only going to accelerate. Eventually, these governments are not going to be able to continue to support Israel. And if they do, they're going to be replaced with politicians that don't. It is not sustainable. There is such an influence of money and power controlling the political system that, yeah, there aren't a lot of players like that on the board right now. The right-wing conservative nationalist ones, they're all bought by Zionists. They're all Tommy Robinstein types. There are very few of them that authentically are nationalists. Most of them are Zionist-funded FAW nationalists. But eventually, yeah, you cannot have global opinion this much against something with people seeing these horrors day after day, after day, and have the world continue to prop this country up. I think you are seeing the last days of the Israeli state as what it is. And by that, I don't mean in the next 2 months, but in the next few years, I think Israel collapses.
Well, this is also what brings to mind when you see that, it's something I mentioned to Sam Husseini a little bit earlier. This is also why you have politicians, even politicians like Ro Khanna, who play dumb when it comes to international law, because they want to maintain some sort of plausible deniability as to their knowledge of just how blatantly in violation of international law Israel is. Because, once again, the straw man of, well, if they wanted to kill every Palestinian in Gaza, they could have, therefore it's not a genocide. According to the Genocide Convention, for what it's worth, and it's an open question as to what that's worth, right? Because ultimately these things are either endorsed by people or they're not. So if there's no one with the power to enforce international law who's willing to, then I guess it doesn't matter. But as long as politicians are going to nod to international law and gesture to a respect for international law, genocidal intent does not require intent to kill every last member of a certain group.
Right.
That is not the definition of genocide. I won't go through it. We've talked about it ad nauseum on this show. Just just Google Genocide Convention UN. You can read the 5 points. It's very obvious Israel is guilty of 4 of them in completion, and they would be guilty of all 5 if they were able to relocate Palestinian children as easily as they wanted to. That is genocidal intent. What he expresses there is clear, unmistakable genocidal intent, and this is why politicians don't want to actually engage with international law, because that becomes exposed within seconds of doing the most basic interrogation of what genocide is according to international law. All right. Why don't we move right on along? Jake, you want to put our scroll up here, please, if you can? Thanks, Jake, for being here. Hey, we are at 2014 in the YouTube chat. And we are at 900 in the All right, folks, if you would like to support the show, the best way to do it is to become a member. DueDissidents.com/Patreon/ Substack. Membership starts at just $5 a month. You get your name up in lights here on the show scroll. You get bonus live stream access once a month. You get Film Club access once a month. We have a special Film Club episode coming up this month, which we will announce, I guess, either Tuesday or when I come back, but it's going to be a really fun one. You get that. You also get call-in access to all of our Q&As, which happen every Sunday night after the main show over on Rumble. Guess what tonight is? Sunday night. That's right. So members will have call-in access to our post-show Q&A coming up after the main show concludes here. And you also get ad-free live stream replays the day after they air live. So if you miss a show and you want to watch it back free of ad interruption on the platforms, you get an ad-free, uninterrupted stream replay emailed to you the day after. So we do our best to make it worth your while. We could not do this show without our members, so thank you all very much for your support. All right, you want to take some chats over there?
Hey, Celeste Holmes. Military FAMs were griping during Iraq War II because their kids didn't have armor and Humvee undercarriages weren't strengthened against IEDs, remember? Yeah, I remember it very well. They weren't sitting there with freaking half a piece of rotten fish starving to death because of resupply. Yeah, but no, there was a lack of armor and Rumsfeld famously said, "You go to war with the army you have."
Right.
That was his response to that. So sure. John Smith, abstract art is the working man's art joke. Yeah, it's very funny to see people arguing it's elitist to not to speak against abstract art. BMK, did you guys see that recent story of an Israeli court blocking Ben-Gvir's crocodile prisons in Israel out of concern for animal welfare? So alligator Alcatraz was a Zionist thing after all. I did not see that. Did you see that, Keaton?
I did see they were planning one, but I did not see that it got struck down. And it's funny, it got struck down out of concern
Because of the
for
alligators.
the alligators. Yeah, concern for the alligators, not concern for the prisoners. Wow.
That tracks.
Yes, it does. I'm pretty sure the British controlled. Oh, so what was this? Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure that the British controlled island was the same one they said got struck by Iranian missiles right before the U.S. ships created a blockade 1,000 miles closer out of range. CB Punk says, sorry, Russ, but it's been the Department of War for a long time. It's been nothing but warring and no defending since Pearl Harbor, and even that is not definitive. Yeah, no, there were certain people who made that point that, hey, in a way, this is more honest branding. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's funny, how a guy like Pete Hegseth would rebrand it that. And then, that's the meme. Rebrands Department of Defense, Department of War, starts war, loses. That's the timeline. Patriotism is a secular religion intended to blind you to the world's outside of Fortress America. Yeah, good. Well put. CB Punk, I knew at 15 in 1989 when I saw Born on the 4th of July, there was no fucking way I was joining up. Also, arguably, MK Ultra, Tom Cruise's best work, pre-Scientology. Yeah, he was great in that
was that pre-Scientology?
Well, that was, when was that? Was that the 8?
Because it was what, Kelly Clarkson who got him into that shit, his first wife, right?
Born on the 4th of July. Let's see. What was the year? I'm going to guess that was 84. Let's see. Born on the 4th of July date. When did that come out? Born on the 4th of July, blah, blah, blah. When did it come out? When did that movie come out? Yeah, I can't find it now. 89. Yeah, 89. 84 is too early. But was that pre-Scientology? I think it was, right?
Didn't they get his hooks in them by then?
Did they? I don't know.
I could be wrong.
Oh yeah, of course, because Platoon.
Not
so
Kelly Clarkson. Who was his first wife? It was Kelly Preston.
Preston,
right? Was that his first wife?
Was he married to Kelly Preston? I don't know.
Hang on.
Yeah, but obviously, if Platoon was 86, then yeah, she didn't know. That was after Platoon.
No, Mimi Rogers. Mimi Rogers. Am I confusing that with the other Scientologist freak Travolta? Is that referencing them?
He even said it was 89 in the super chat.
All right, so they married in 87. Yeah, Rogers. Okay, so I was right, but the wrong person. Yeah, Rogers is widely credited with introducing Cruise to Scientology. They were married 87, divorced 90. Mimi Rogers. So Kelly Preston, yeah, that's Travolta. I think that's why.
Yeah, Kelly Preston. She did American Gothic.
Yeah, Travolta's Preston.
Yeah.
So I'm lumping all the Scientology freaks together.
Yeah, she did American Gothic. I heard she painted that painting.
Oh,
Kelly
yeah,
Preston.
right.
Yeah. And Christina Ricci did the Mona Lisa. She is the Mona Lisa. She is. She was the model for Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa.
I mean, look, she had
Quentin Tarantino's
spectacular
Mona Lisa.
breasts. That one.
Yeah.
Christina Ricci, spectacular.
If America drops a nuke or nukes on Iran, what should we all do as Americans? If America drops a nuke or nukes on Iran, what should we all do as Americans? Run, I would say. You're closer to Mexico than to Canada. But yeah, I would say at that point, flee. Yeah, that would be very bad. Dig it, as in, can you dig it? Okay. All right. Thanks.
Can you dig it?
More like I'm an old asshole instead of an old soul. No, you're an old soul. You strike me as an old soul. I had a vision of you, Vienticus, as like like one of these old academic types, long gray hair, a beard, types a lot. That's my vision of you. like a thin older guy, typing away. If that standoff script is so disparaging of those sailors, I hope he's just as callous about a 5-time draft dodger Trump. Yeah, who knows if that's even a person? These people, you never even know
that's
who's a bot and who's not. That's another thing. Ugly Old Broad says, yes, I have a stream. It's to keep me from isolating, and I get to air my boomer political frustrations. Oh, it's bad, and I have to tell my viewers to watch you, so I figured I'd raid them to you next Sunday. Well, yeah, let people know what it is. I'd be curious to see it. Why don't you put it in the chat what your channel is? Are you on Rumble only, or are you YouTube as well? But yeah, I'm curious. Kenman, Russ, you said Moby Dick is your favorite novel. What do you think of the extended nonfiction like chapters about whaling? Are these flaws or gratuitous?
It's one of my favorite things about it.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, I find those chapters fascinating.
There you go. There's your answer. All right. Why don't we move right on along here?
All right. Speaking of big fat whales, so Yehuda Shimon here made a lot of waves here on a BBC report by saying the soft part out loud, as so many of these Zionists are doing now. We are the chosen people, and our life is worth 1 million Palestinian lives, according to him.
Now, after they kill one Israeli people, we need to kill all the people in Tel and Sarah, even Jit and Farata. Why? Because we don't want it to happen again.
It sounds like you're saying one Jewish life is worth hundreds or thousands of Palestinian lives.
Not million. One Jewish life, it's 10 million, okay?
That just sounds racist.
Yes, I know.
Oh,
yes.
Now you're catching on.
I know, but this is the truth. Because God chose us. Because of this, you are jealous.
These inflammatory
It sounds
views,
racist because it
rejected
is,
by
but
many
it's true because
Israelis,
we're
are
better than
crucial
you.
to understanding the growing violence in the West Bank, which many extremist Israeli settlers see as land given to them by God.
The Bible is the authorizing that this land it's belong to us. Okay?
Israel occupied it militarily.
Yes,
and under international law, that means that no civilian settlements can be built in.
But the God not write in the Bible the international law.
So you're a lawyer, and you're saying
He's a lawyer.
The only law that really counts for you is the Bible.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I've said this before, man. I'm sorry. You're free to have a different opinion. Religion is the thing that makes me most feel like the world is an asylum. It's insane. It's insane. The Bible makes no sense. Makes no sense in and of itself. Setting aside other religions, I'm not saying that that's unique to the Old Testament. But Jesus Christ, it's just fucking gobbledygook. It's nonsense. I said this long before October 7th. It was very not welcome at family gatherings. It's an inherently supremacist worldview. Of course, having a religion built around the idea that you are God's chosen people is going to lead to a supremacist ideology. It's an inherently supremacist ideology based on absolute fucking nonsense. It's nonsense. The Bible contradicts itself from Genesis on. It doesn't make any sense. Why does Cain need a mark to keep people from attacking him if everyone's descended from Adam and Eve? There shouldn't be any other people. Where do all those other people come from? It's just fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous to build an entire society around this nonsense, man. It makes me crazy. But this is a good example of going beyond. This isn't just like my rants on abstract art. This has real world consequences, right? like this actually, to have an entire state built around the idea that God gave you this land And yeah, most of the Israelis are secular, but Ilan Pappé said it best. Most Israelis are secular, but they all believe that God gave them Palestine. Right? Like, why else would you be there? Right? You think God gave you Palestine. Hussein, notice how the BBC reporter wastes no time to mention that many Israelis reject these views. Yet, don't most Israelis still support the ongoing genocide in Gaza? Sure do. Sure do. It's from 2025, middle of 2025. Yes to transfer. 82% of Jewish Israelis back expelling Gazans, which is remarkable because I can tell you as a Jewish person, like the idea of being transported in trains away from your home is very central to what they impress on you about the Holocaust and about what your people have suffered. It is amazing to have Jews that supportive of transporting people out of their home like that. This was around the same time. 64% of Israelis see no need for more reporting on Gazan sufferings. And actually, that's an understatement because that includes all Israelis. If you limit it to Jewish Israelis, that rises to 72%. 72% believe there are no innocent people in Gaza of Jewish Israelis. Banned man. So you want to see like what this leads to when you have this view that you are the chosen people and all the people around you are Nazis or they are analogs for all of the different pharaonic forces that oppressed your people. You could do anything to them, right? You could do anything to them. Israel blocks ambulances in the West Bank again. I put this in chronological order. So this is from August 3rd. Shoots Palestinians, then seals off medical access so they bleed out and die. Deliberate, sadistic state policy. Look at this. What kind of people would do something like that? Who would do something like that? Imagine this. You're a Palestinian running a small shop in the West Bank. Then they arrive. Israeli settlers mass storm in and destroy everything. If you dare to resist, you're taken by the IDF and your life is finished. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? He doesn't want to go to one of those Israeli prisons?
No,
maybe never come out?
That's living in a Nazi occupied. That's like at the beginning of
Right.
Inglourious Bastards, where the Nazis come up the road and there's nothing you can do. There's
Right.
nothing you can do. There's no one you can call.
And
There's
again, it's amazing as a Jewish person knowing the kinds of stories they raise you on, like Kristallnacht, that Jews don't see that they're the Nazis. Being raised on these stories of shops being looted and destroyed by the Nazis. It's amazing. It's amazing that they would do this and not see what they've become. Another one. This is fucking horrific. You won't believe what Israeli bulldozers are doing to the West Bank. They keep destroying entire roads and infrastructure on purpose. Israel wants to make life impossible, so Palestinians have no choice but to leave, and that's what all of this is about, obviously. But yeah, look. They're just coming through and ripping up the roads. What do you think they're doing? Infrastructure improvements? They're trying to make it unlivable. They're trying to make it so these people have to leave. This is from the Washington Post. This has kind of come to a head now because they basically laid siege to a Palestinian American home. It was enough of an embarrassment that even Mike Huckabee had to actually say something about it. IDF troops stood by as West Bank settlers besieged Palestinian homes when Israeli extremists, see, they're not like most Israelis, arrived in Kusra to force Palestinians from their homes. Residents hoped the IDF would come to their aid. I don't know why they would have thought that. When Israeli extremists arrived here this week seeking to evict Palestinians from their hilltop homes, Qusay Abu Reda and other besieged residents, huddling indoors and running short on food and water, hoped the Israel Defense Forces would come to their aid. Instead, the soldiers drank coffee and prayed with the assailants. When the Israeli general in charge of the occupied West Bank, Lieutenant General Avi Bluth, came Wednesday and promised to protect residents, they allowed themselves to feel a glimmer of relief. But IDF troops evicted other Palestinians from their homes and declared the area a military operation zone. They drove away some settlers, but allowed others to continue their siege. At a time when settler attacks in the West Bank have become a daily occurrence, the effort this week to oust the Palestinians by cutting off their food, water, and electricity has stood out not just for its aggression, but for the response of the Israeli military, which appeared incapable of confronting extremists or complicit in their attempt. Yeah, it's that one. It's that one. Yeah, they're not incapable. They're complicit. Okay, so one of the reasons that this is coming to such a fever pitch right now, according to reports, there were over 300 settler attacks in May alone, is because their defense minister has stopped enforcing any consequences on these settlers, and he brags about it. This is from the Times of Israel. Katz boasts of ending administrative detention for Jews, increasing its use against Arabs. Defense Minister Israel Katz boasted on Tuesday of having ceased signing off on administrative detention orders against Jewish suspects while significantly increasing the draconian tool, which allows for a suspect to be held without charge against Arab suspects. The same day, Katz also touted Israel's destruction of historic villages in southern Lebanon amid its war against Hezbollah, as he appeared to boost his right-wing talking points ahead of the upcoming national election on October 27th. Quote, I canceled on my own initiative all administrative detention orders against settlers in the West Bank, Katz said during a Likud campaign event in the Ariel settlement. So that probably has a lot to do with it. They have a defense minister who explicitly is saying, don't worry, I'm not going to enforce any consequences on settlers who attack Palestinians, but I will do that to Palestinians. So why wouldn't they, right? So this is Andre X. He's been doing some great and very brave work. You never know with these people, man. They'll kill you as soon as look at you. It's amazing to me, the bravery of these activists who go and confront the IDF this way. This morning, activists attempted to retake a Palestinian house stolen by the settlers near Bethlehem in the West Bank. They removed the Israeli flags the settlers set up on the building and replaced them with Palestinian ones. In response, settler terrorists fired live ammunition at the activists. Israeli army supported the settlers and expelled the rightful landowners from the land. So this will give you an idea of what these people go through there. Oh, what?
Fuck. The army from down there are shooting live ammunition at us. Okay. עומד בתוכו. Fuck. היי, 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 היי!
עכשיו סע מפה! סעו מפה! סעו! סעו מפה! שטח פרטי, תוסו מפה! נכנסתם לבית שלנו?
You entered our house. This is not your house. This is our house. This is my house registered in my name. I am the owner of the house and the land. This is a private house of Palestinians. The settler says, I am also Palestinian. This is my house. Activist, this is the real house owner. This is the ownership document of Elias here standing next to me.
Which the settlers just took for themselves.
Who are the two terrorists who set up these terrorist flags? That's the settler. Everyone who is standing here is a terror supporter. Activist, the whole world knows that you are the terrorists. Activist, this is not yours. Settler, this is mine. This is my territory. Now the army arrives.
They opened fire at our unarmed journalists. I want to file a complaint as a journalist. They don't want to take my complaint. They opened fire at me and the Japanese journalist.
We came with the owners of the house and with the tabu, the land registry for this house, and settlers have put up flags and a giant Israeli Magen David on it. We came to take down these flags and to make the place worthy of living again. And as Jews, we have the privilege to not be slaughtered immediately by these settlers. However, they still came and shot at us with live fire. He's saying they shouldn't talk to us because they're scared they'll say something illegal. Everything that they're doing is illegal. This is private property. We came with the land claim, with the citizens of this place, and they're protecting the settlers and refusing to tell us why.
That is a new Israeli settler terror outpost, which was set up by the settlers about a year ago, and they paused construction during Christmas because it's right next to the city of Bethlehem, and they didn't want the bad PR. And now they have been taking over Palestinian houses and Palestinian land in the whole area. And of course, in the end, they're aiming at taking over Bethlehem itself.
That's amazing video, man. I mean, you look. I mean, you're out
The
there.
impunity, just the impunity. That
Well,
they have.
also, I mean, from these people, I mean, you're out there in the middle of fucking nowhere. They can do whatever they want.
Oh, yeah, and they will.
And tell the authorities whatever story they want, and they're going to be believed. I mean, it's a good thing they have
And
the
there's no
cameras on. Otherwise, who knows?
consequences.
Of course, right? Exactly.
Ihab Hassan, and this is where finally this started to get some attention. For 5 consecutive days, Israeli settler terrorists are surrounding the home of an American citizen in the Palestinian village of Kusra in the occupied West Bank, leaving the family trapped inside their own home. Yes, the owner of this house is an American citizen. For 5 days, his family has been trapped inside under threat, yet I have not seen a single public condemnation from the U.S. Embassy in Israel or from U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee demanding that Israeli authorities protect this American citizen and hold those responsible accountable. Does an American passport suddenly mean less when the person carrying it is Palestinian? Yes. The answer to that is yes. But this finally got so much bad press that Huckabee had to pretend to care, which he clearly does not by his actions. This is another lie from Huckabee here. U.S. Embassy has been very involved, and the IDF and Israeli police have gone at our request to remove the Israeli terrorists doing this. They said, guys, we got some very bad press from this. You have to go away for a few days, and then you can come back. We say, we didn't know about it, but you got to go away for now. The actions of those doing this to this family's home is criminal. The White House hasn't intervened because we have kept D.C. apprised of the situation already. Oh, yeah. Hey, what's going on with those attacks in the West Bank? I'm very concerned. I'd like a report. Yeah, that's what happens. Actions by those who carried out this horrific act of terror meant to intimidate and harass this family are disgusting. No excuse for such thuggish behavior. But saying the U.S. Embassy doesn't care, hasn't done anything is simply untrue. What a fucking joke. I thought this guy's a Christian. They've been terrorizing the people in the Christian village of Taba for years. They've been terrorizing these people. And over the last year, they've been burning down their olive groves, destroying their livelihood. Once a safe haven, Christian Palestinians say they have no future in this village. He won't even help them. He's going to help Muslims. Residents of the West Bank village describe constant harassment by Israeli settlers, threats, damage to vehicles, and arsons. 15 families have left, along with dozens of young people. Hasn't done anything about that. You want to see the Hebron Hills have eyes over here? This is what they're dealing with. This is in Taba, the Christian village in Palestine. Look at these inbred Mongoloid motherfuckers, man. That is some Wes Craven shit right there. Chosen people, my ass. So yeah, he's not doing anything about that, but he would have you believe that he's deeply concerned about Muslim Palestinians. So here is Danny Danon, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, laying out pretty clearly what the Israel, even as he says this is a fringe minority, doesn't call it the West Bank, calls it Judea and Samaria, and doubles down on their right to the land.
It reflects a double standard that we must address today. When speaker after speaker refers to settler violence, it is an insult to thousands of years of continuous Jewish history in the land of Israel. Jews have never been and will never be settlers in Judea and Samaria. It's a provocation.
Ugh.
Why? Because first it denies our connection to the land of Israel. It distracts from constant terrorist attacks against Israelis, and it collectively labels entire innocent communities for the crimes of the marginal extremist minority. Our right to live in our land is based on our historical connection to it. It is described in the Torah. Judea and Samaria is where our story in the land of Israel began. It is where it will continue. We are not going anywhere.
Okay.
Notice you've never seen one, if I could just interject very quickly, you've never seen one instance of Palestinian villager on Israeli settler violence out of the West Bank. None. You had not seen one video of a Palestinian villager attacking an Israeli settler. Not a single one.
This is what he's saying. Yo, this is recently I had to cut somebody off who was this fucking cuckoo that I knew for a long time, used to date. And she told me you can't steal land that belongs to you. Like this is what they believe. This is what they believe.
Should have told you you can't steal pussy that belongs to you.
You can't. She was a lesbian. I turned her.
Oh,
but I couldn't turn her away from Zionism. See, it's easier to turn a lesbian straight than it is to turn a Zionist into someone who's going to speak against the Israel project. Ihab Hassan, Israeli settler terrorists deliberately emptied Palestinian water tanks onto the ground in Ain al-Hilwa in the northern Jordan Valley of the occupied West Bank. Palestinians in this herding community struggle every day for water after Israeli settlers seized their main spring 5 years ago. This is pure evil. This is what Normans say. It's satanic. Right? Yeah. I mean, the state is satanic. I don't know of any established state that behaves like this. Yeah, you have the RSF, which is really not a state. It's basically a military that's preying on the people in Sudan. They behave this way. I don't know of any established state, much less one that's ostensibly in good international standing, that does things like this. But that's the least of it. So this story was making the rounds this week. You want to see satanic? They're taking the water these people depend on to make a water park for themselves.
Israeli settler Yishai Schreiber enjoys a pool filled with fresh water diverted from Palestinian land.
They're afraid, terrified to death, right? Any Arab family that came here would simply run away.
The spring was a lifeline for the nearby village of Fasail in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. But in June, settlers cut off the Palestinians' irrigation pipes and siphoned the water for their own use, including filling this ancient pool. Settlers soon advertised it as an Israeli tourist attraction. Welcome to Herod's Pools, the sign reads, bearing the logo of the party of Israeli far-right minister and settler Bezalel Smotrich, who pledged financial support for the development. There are no Palestinians here, only Israeli families.
When you show them what the truth is, meaning you show who is strong, who is really the owner of the house, then they will simply flee.
Nearby, Saad Nemer's crops are dried out. His greenhouses would usually be full of eggplant, zucchini and watermelon. We haven't had a drop of water for the past 3 months, the Palestinian farmer says, and many families in Fasail will lose their livelihoods. Nemer said settlers had threatened him and beaten up an employee for attempting to approach the spring as far back as 2 years ago. He showed Reuters land ownership documents, including one from Israel's Kogat military agency, proving both the spring and the pools were on his land.
We cannot go fix it or do any maintenance work since 2 settlers arrived there and prevented us.
Neither Kogat nor Smotrich responded to requests for comment. Israel's far-right government has backed a massive expansion of settlements across the West Bank, where settler attacks on Palestinians and seizure of their resources have risen sharply. Since the start of this year alone, at least 160 sites related to water and sanitation came under settler attack, according to UN data. Palestinian activist Faris Fuqaha estimates that settlers have seized control of 95% of springs in the northern Jordan Valley, displacing communities. It's heartbreaking, he says. While Adil Yassin of the Palestinian Water Authority called it part of a water war to force Palestinians off the land.
It harms the Palestinian side more than shooting at them. A bullet kills one person, but cutting off a water source kills a community.
These natural springs are some of the last.
So that's it. That's it. They're ripping up the roads. They're burning their olive trees. They're taking their water. They're just trying to make it absolutely impossible for them to survive, to live there, and throwing them out of their homes. And there's nobody there who's going to enforce any justice. Now, this was just breaking today. U.S. officials said set to tour West Bank village that's been besieged by settler extremists. A delegation of senior American officials intends to go to the West Bank village of Kusra in the next few days, where violent settlers have besieged Palestinian residents, to see for themselves what's going on there, Channel 12 reports. The U.S. has reportedly asked that senior Israeli defense officials join them at the village south of Nablus to explain what is going on there and how they plan to tackle the broad spiraling phenomena of Jewish settler violence. U.S. envoy Jared Kushner is due in Israel tomorrow, though there was no suggestion in the report that he is set to join the trip. And this also just breaking, this is from the Pope's sermon today. I respect the man, but I don't know why he's still talking about a two-state solution. I guess that's kind of his job, but dear brothers and sisters, I renew my appeal for an end to the repeated violence against the Palestinian civilian population in the West Bank, and I urgently call
on the international community to advance the two-state solution for a just and lasting peace. Yeah, there's no such thing. You can't have a two-state solution with a bunch of supremacist animals. More and more, this is why, and I saw it in the comments when I was talking about it before. And hey, I hope I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. They're being forced to pretend to care. They don't give a shit. They're being forced to pretend to care because this is probably causing some problems with some of our allies in the Middle East. They're probably getting some calls from the Qataris and the Saudis telling them, hey, this West Bank thing makes our populations restive against our regimes. It's going to make it much harder for us to cooperate with you in propping up the criminal genocidal Israeli state that we're willing to cooperate with because we're scum, possibly even worse than the Israelis because we sell out our own people. So you can't make it as obvious that we're selling out our own people. So you have to go do something about this. That's the only possible explanation I have for why they are even addressing it in this way. But it's sure to be only symbolic. Why, you think they care? You think America is going to come in? Mike Huckabee has explicitly stated that he acknowledges their right to Judea and Samaria. He's not against what they're doing. They're not going to do anything fundamental to change this trajectory. But I think the public pressure on Israel is going to continue to grow. I think it's a tidal wave that really cannot be stopped. And in the end, I believe it's going to wipe away the Israeli state. And frankly, along with it, a lot of governments in the Middle East that have been complicit in what's happened to the Palestinian people.
Well, I think one of the things that they're concerned about is that the more Israel encroaches upon the West Bank, the less and less plausible their bullshit line about a two-state solution is, because at a certain point, there's not going to be a second state's worth of land, right? Like if they just can't, and this is the argument against the two-state, so one of many arguments against a two-state solution is that you can't have a two-state solution where one state is intent upon cannibalizing the other state. And so the more that happens, the less and less plausible it is to propose a two-state solution or to feign support for a two-state solution. What I think a lot of these countries want, and what a lot of these governments want, is for the status quo to basically remain in place. And this is, I think, why you had sanctions on these settlers until Trump lifted them. Because as long as there is a West Bank that is at least separate nominally from Israel, there's the hope for a two-state solution, right? But if they just go, all in on colonizing the West Bank, then at that point, what two-state solution are you even talking about? Where's the other state going to go? The more land Israel claims, the less space you have for your hypothetical second state, right? So I think that is probably a big part of it. But look, it's just pure thuggery and pure Nazism. There's no other word for it. It's just it's absolutely horrible, absolutely horrible. And any concern that they express is concern that for whatever diplomatic or political reason they feel it's in their interest,
right? Yep.
To say something, and
yeah,
I think,
they don't
that's
care.
a big part of it, of course.
Yep.
Of course. Yep. All right. You want to take some of those super chats? So we got one more segment on the evening. Please do smash that like button, everybody. Smash that subscribe button.
Why don't you do it? Because I gotta load in my videos for the.
Oh yeah, that's right. Of course. Okay, I have quite a few. Excuse me. Postmodernists wanted to end high versus low art. They did this by making all art high art. Now you need to have read a Marxian analysis of Friday the 13th to truly appreciate it. Thank you. Kenman, what do you guys think will be the result of the U.S. using nukes in Iran? Well, I mean, at that point, you would be provoking, involvement of other nuclear armed powers. I mean, I think there's only one response that invites. And so at that point, it's world war.
I think that results in nonverbal humans and apes ruling the earth.
Yeah, exactly. Eric Rousseau, I agree with Dan Bilzerian that we should invade Israel. Oh, his primary is this Tuesday, right? Florida votes this Tuesday. That's right. Username, people thinking exclusively about Israeli Zionism are short-sighted. Evangelical and Mormon crazy only get started once Israel collapses. You think Israel's holding the Mormons in check? That's a theory. I haven't heard that one before. Keeping a lid on those Mormons. John M. in Minnesota. Russ, I hope you're right, but how do you square that worldwide disdain for Israel with, for example, the recent success of Israelization of Latin South American governments? Well, they're puppet governments. I mean, that's right. Once again, more just thuggery on display. I mean, who knows? Maybe Israel's capital will flee to Argentina, and there will be an Argentinian Nakba. Who knows? Maybe they'll just move.
I think that when you have the level of just worldwide hatred for the Israelis that you have among the people, I don't think governments can sustain support for them. In the end, it's got to give. Now, what is going to come with that, which we've been saying really since October 8th, is going to be a worldwide wave of anti-Semitic backlash that's going to make Nazi Germany look like a Passover Seder. I can see it building month by month and year by year, man. Like real anti-Semitism, not anti-Zionism, is becoming more and more mainstream and inseparable from anti-Zionism, which is part of what the Zionists insist on. They want that. They feed on that.
Of course. Nope, I'm a fat old internet nerd who is good at typing one-handed. But you're not old. If you're under 50, you're not old. That's the thing. The Enticus, I've just always been one that questions. I came up with my first major piece of wisdom when I was 10, seeing people applauding Reagan, saying something retarded. You saw through it then? It was at that moment I realized the world is completely stupid, and whether it be tyranny of the majority or tyranny of the minority, you always live under tyranny. Thank you, Vienticus. Cool Blue says, happy birthday to Amanda, Madonna, Angela Bassett, Steve Carell, George Galloway. Oh, George Galloway, and me. Oh, look at you, Cool Blue. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, nice. Happy birthday.
Blue.
Oh, wow. Same birthday, huh?
Nice,
all right.
nice.
So I was destined to do this. I was in 6th grade when Reagan got shot. Mm-hmm. And I used to go home for lunch because I wouldn't eat the school slop. And I only lived 3 blocks away. So I would go home, have lunch, and go back to school. So I'm coming back to school, and the crossing guard says, Reagan was shot. I said, good.
The Anticus, I've always thought religion was stupid. I'm sure I told you after being explained the creation myth when I was 6, I was like, if all that's true, what the fuck do I need you to tell me that for? Thank you, Vienticus. Eric Rousseau, God gave them Palestine, but forgot to supply them SPF 1000 sunscreen. That's right. Omniscient God, my ass. That's right. Vienticus, I'm pretty sure I emailed you guys the picture I made when I was 6 about that, Keaton. Oh, you did? Well, I must have missed that one, Vienticus, if you care to resend. Sorry if I missed your email. Richard Lee Pemberton, thanks for the $20. Appreciate that. Religious texts need not and should not be understood literally. The original authors didn't understand their stories as historical truth. We should value them as powerful myths and symbols. Yeah, I mean, I get that. I get that. Look, I mean, I think people need to have some sort of order imposed upon them, and that's the purpose that it serves. And yeah, there's a lot of terrible shit that goes along with that. But, the alternative to people being controlled is people using their brains, which could be worse. Could be worse, People thinking for themselves, who knows? A lot of people are too stupid to do that. So if they try, they could hurt themselves, That's where I'm coming from. Mr. Measy, Danny Denon looks and talks like a Nazi. Prove him right.
Yep.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Yep.
Of course.
They all do, though.
Of course. Yeah. Exactly. All right. You want to take some of those chats over there?
Race car. Hey, we still have a lot of international goodwill from inventing Twinkies in 1930. We'll get through this current crisis, no problem. Do they even make them anymore? Because I know like Hostess went under or something. Like
Twinkies?
Are they still made? I don't even think they're made anymore. Heavy snack. When MAGA's sons and daughters come back home emaciated, their Fox News parents keg breath and RFK for making their child so lean and fit. I don't know
the
about
shit
that.
water is good for you, actually. It's good for your immune system, you know? That's what they'll say.
This how, don't make my mistake. They told me if I had drunk some shit water, the worm wouldn't have eaten as much of my brain.
The third man. If I bet on humanity, I'd never cash a ticket. Charles Bukowski, born August 16th, 1920. I love Bukowski.
Oh, it's his birthday, too. I didn't notice that. I didn't know that.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah,
The only
that's a-
person I
that's a
share
stacked
a birthday with is David Duchovny.
Oh, yeah?
Apparently,
even
David
know.
Duchovny, man, I didn't know he's like a polymath. He's released like 2 or 3 albums. He's written a few novels. He's coming to New York actually to promote his book of poetry.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yes. That's how I found that out, because Facebook thought I might want to go. They're wrong.
Right.
But they
They're right,
thought,
yeah.
they're
But they
like,
thought maybe.
he buys theater tickets.
You're a
maybe
Gen
he'll go
Xer.
to
You might
that,
like the
you know?
X-Files. Yeah.
I mean, I do, but not enough to go pay to see that guy read poetry. I don't give a shit.
Right.
Um,
All right, let me take a couple more of these because we got some Rumble rants here. Balfour and Rothschild's faking gay Amalek Nation of Israel. Professor Brown note, hello, we're DD, sexist, ageist, ableist, anti-art, anti-religion. fat man. Thank you.
That's you should put that up as our banner on our
Yeah, that should
YouTube
be
page.
it. Yeah. Well, that's that and anti-white post-war consensus fanatics.
Yes,
That's what we
yes,
should put on there.
yes.
What is the name of Vienticus's book? I'm an electronics enthusiast and always enjoy added project books to the home library. Yeah, I'll get it. I'm going to do one more ad read for Vienticus, probably when I come back from California, space it out a little bit. But the book is called, this one's on me, Vienticus, Electrical Concepts for Everyday People. That is Vienticus' book. Big book. Big book here. So, yeah. Give that a read. It's on Barnes & Noble. Not Amazon, Barnes & Noble only. Electrical Concepts for Everyday People. By, well, what's his name? Does it even say your name here? Charles Kovacs. That's his name. And I'm assuming it's okay to disclose that, Vienticus, since it's on the fucking thing. All right. All right. There we go. All right. You want to do our final segment of the evening, and then we were going over to Rumble for the Q&A.
All right, here we go. So you could argue Ta-Nehisi Coates was probably the Obama administration's favorite essayist. Maybe not anymore. So you remember he was really the resident writer on the subject of reparations for the Atlantic. Very beloved by the liberal class. You know, there was one problem though. Here is the owner of the Atlantic, Stephanie Powell Jobs, Steve Jobs' widow, hanging out with her bestie, Ghislaine Maxwell. And who's the editor-in-chief over there? Jeffrey Goldberg, who not only was an IDF prison guard, so proud of it, he wrote a whole book about his experience as an IDF prison guard. I bet he cut all the torture parts out. So, you know, if you're a person of conscience, that gig's not going to last. Eventually, something's got to give. Zay Squirrel has been all over this, man. He has been all over the twists and turns at the Atlantic. The Zionist propaganda rag owned by Ghislaine Maxwell's bestie and run by Israeli grape torture volunteer Jeffrey Goldberg who needed a new half-black token after Coates went off the reservation on Israel. Quote, "It is possible to kill children legally." Nothing Zionists say shock me anymore. So who's he talking about? So this guy, Tyler Austin Harper, which, you know, he got himself into a little bit of a pickle. This professor Ardley, who self-deleted now after all of this enormous backlash came at him for plagiarism and kind of being a fake academic. You know, you can ask Keaton. This has actually come up. I have chosen not to publicly attack certain people because I felt like they were a little flaky and might self-delete. I didn't want it to come back on me. So he's kind of built his brand around being a guy who was on tenure track to be a professor who is speaking out against academia. So he went all in on that. And now he's like, no, I didn't say any of that. I didn't mean that. I wasn't picking on him. Gotta be careful with that shit. A certain playwright I left alone when his last show bombed for that reason.
Oh, is that who you were talking about? I didn't know that. Because I did not ever think that you held back for that. I thought there were certain people who you didn't
I held back on his flop show because I said, you know what, man, that guy seems like a dude who might self-delete. He probably won't, but you never know.
Yeah, you don't want to
probably better not to
you don't want to have that on your
record.
conscience. Yeah. I did not know that was a concern of yours.
Yes. Well, because the experience I had with him, it seemed
I thought
like
he might
the kind
come
of guy who might
smear shit on your wall or something. You know, but I don't know.
Maybe that
I didn't know it was that is severe.
Those of you who have really been paying attention over the years will know who I'm talking about. Nathan Calvin, I had a bit of a feud with a famous playwright a couple years back. Nathan Kalman Lamb. Why is it so? Speaking to Tyler Austin Harper, who is horrified by academia and was conscience stricken, had to walk out on academia, says quite appropriately, "Why is it you find it morally indefensible to work for a university, but not one of the world's leading genocide laundering publications?" That's a good question. He never answers that question. They never do, right? So, but hey, man, you know, if we do open up a category in our New Year's Eve awards this year, I'm suggesting a most improved category. Hey, man, Ta-Nehisi Coates is definitely in the running there for most improved. So he went on with the Majority Report, and I don't know this for a fact. It seems to me that him getting stumped by this question is part of the reason he was so prepared in the epic answer that he gave to a similar question this past week. Well, so let's see what he said to the Majority Report when they asked him about why Obama and Harris had the foreign policy they had.
Brother, that's $1 million question. Because as I said, you know, it was very important to me that I end that piece the way I did, because Harris's biography does not strike me as somebody who was new to the notion of Black struggle and that intersection with a broader international struggle. In fact, she probably knows more about it than I do. You know, I just read some books recently. She's probably been thinking about this for years. It's in Obama's book. It's actually in his book. He arrives in Indonesia maybe a year, you know, after, you know, they start, you know, massacring people and putting people into, and he writes about it. I mean, it's, you know, his defense. It's not like he hides it. He's very much aware of that. Why that didn't, you know, ultimately play a larger part in his policy, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's because you got to be a peculiar or a different kind of person to run for presidents, to be the president in the first place. You know, maybe that like weeds out, you know, certain people, you know, right off the bat. You know,
the decent ones.
You know, I don't know. Some would say it actually did. You know, and this is about as restrained as it gets for an American president. You know, some would tell you that, you know, and I'm just telling you what the reporting, you know, I did told me. I don't think this, you know, should offer any sort of comfort or consolation or forgiveness on the parts of Palestinians themselves. But I had so many people tell me, in fact, I had, you know, founders of Uncommitted tell me that behind the scenes, you know, Kamala Harris clearly disagreed with Joe Biden and would say it, and they believed her and they believed that she was sincere. You know, now what you would say to me, and I think this is correct, is that what you say is what matters ultimately, and what you say off the record and behind the scenes is kind of irrelevant. You know, so I'm just I don't know why it doesn't matter more.
So he seemed there not to really be ready for that question. But by the time he got around to this interview this week, it really, honestly, it seems like he sat down and thought about it. And he has a more fleshed out theory of the case now. So here he is, which is pretty remarkable because he was so associated with Barack Obama and the Obama administration and that era. It's pretty amazing to see him come to some of these conclusions about Obama and the kind of politics he represented.
Like Barack Obama could have pursued a more moral foreign policy as president? Or was he too constrained by what the quote unquote duty of what the American presidency is?
I think absolutely. He absolutely could have pursued a more moral foreign policy. I mean, he says this himself, Libya. You know what I mean? Like that's the obvious one.
Or Yemen. For me, I was like, did he have to?
Yeah, that's what I was
did he
going
have
next.
to use cluster bombs?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's, look, I don't, there are people in this world who will tell you, look, there is no version of this in which we don't do this kind of violence to people. If there's a difference between who I was around the time of Between the World and Me and who I am now, I just don't extend that level of trust to people when they say those things anymore. It's not that I can sit here and tell you why that's not true, but I guess I just feel like they aren't necessarily to be believed. I have much more contact now than I did before with people who live under the weight of it, and I cannot accept that there's no other way. I can't accept that there's no other way except, every now and then somebody's wedding party gets bombed. Like, I don't accept that. I don't accept that.
Wow. But that's just the warm up, man. That is just the warm up. This was the really epic drop.
Like, the people I was with, like, the question you have to ask is lethal military or lethal armed forces, who's on the other side of that, right? Because it's not just lethal and then just held here, right? Yeah. Who historically has been on the other side of that? Right. And so here I am outside with people, you know what I mean, whose family.
He's talking about when he was at the DNC convention and Kamala talked about how they're going to support the military and equip the military. And he's standing there with uncommitted activists.
These are at that very moment on the other side of it, by the way. And so I didn't feel great. And I have to really be at pains to say this, right? Because I know Kamala Harris represents the fruition, the hopes and dreams, of a lot of Black women, who have struggled mightily in this country. And I really, really want to be maybe even more than, respectful of Kamala Harris herself. I want to be respectful of the struggle that made her possible. I don't want to be disrespectful of her, but I'm saying, I have just tremendous respect and admiration for the struggle, and yet, and for the weight, that was put on her. And yet, look, I get it. It's heavy. But why are we here? Are we here to just act like white men have acted every time before?
So
and if so, what am I don't know what I'm doing. Well, I can tell you what the struggle means to me.
Sure.
And the struggle means to me, not just that we would get the boot off of our necks, but that we would destroy the boot, that this would not happen to other people. And I don't think I'm out on a limb on that. I think that's always been the content of our struggle has always been that it's been bigger than us. That's been the fact of it. It is not the case that the civil rights movement just benefited Black Americans themselves. It is not the case that Dr. Martin Luther King, when he saw what was going on in Vietnam, said, well, I just need to shut up and just, make sure my people were okay. It is not the case that Fannie Lou Hamer was only concerned about Mississippi. It's not the case that W.B. Du Bois was not concerned about the world. It is not the case that James Baldwin, went over to Israel and was like, well, I can't talk about this because I'm only concerned about my people. What I'm trying to say is the best of us have always been concerned, beyond ourselves, and so I don't really know how to be any different. And to the extent that, I say that is the weight that she has to carry, if you want to say that the endpoint of our dream, of our struggle, is simply to, get us in, positions of power, to integrate us into the machine and to not, change the machine, then don't talk about Fannie Lou Hamer. Don't talk about Dr. Martin Luther King. Because that wasn't what their lives were about. You know what I mean? If this is just mere, pragmatic interest group struggle, and that's it. If it's a narrow kind of nationalism, if that's all we're concerned about, then, you know what I mean? Those are the, the struggles and the peoples that we should model ourselves after. But that's not my struggle. That's not my fight.
That is an incredible soundbite coming from him. That's it. He just laid out the whole fallacy in the entire Obama project, and before that, the Clinton project, and really the DNC Democratic Party project. They have tried to put forward the idea that their only purpose and the only thing they need to do to solve injustice in America is to diversify oligarchy. If you have more black billionaires, if you have more female CEOs, it's all good. And he's calling that out. And he's pointing out that the people who a lot of people like Kamala like to invoke, they didn't see it that way. If you go back and you look at this, one of the things that's amazing about sitting and talking to Omali Yeshitela, he sounds like the leaders of the era he came out of, who had a very global internationalist perspective, who understood that their struggle was part of a global struggle for freedom from colonialism, that wasn't just a black struggle, that was also a Vietnamese struggle, that was also a Cuban struggle against this imperialist machine. For a guy like him who had it made in the shade, he was in that Van Jones lane, man. He could have just cruised like that. Bezos would be writing him a nice $100 million check, and he knows that. He knows that, and it takes a lot of courage. He should really be applauded that he's making this choice. These people never forgive you for that. They never forgive you for humiliating them like that and calling out the reality of how empty their political project actually is. Full slack. Ta-Nehisi Coates is one of the few Obama-era liberal darlings who really grew because he did the reading and understood that he was embedded within a much more insidious machine than he even originally thought. Yeah, well said. Jamarius. Black liberals, unsurprisingly, losing their minds once again because Ta-Nehisi Coates is reminding them that Kamala Harris lacked the moral courage to oppose genocide, even though he still voted for her. That's not good enough for them. They want blind loyalty. Doesn't everybody, man? Doesn't everybody? I promise you, in their, how Glenn Greenwald put it, the left is a movement that works to make itself smaller. Right. I promise you, you're going to have a lot of people who will always say, he was with Obama. He was with Obama, who are never going to allow for this man to evolve and to change as he did. Cabo-Chan Nazar. I hate this quote from the black liberal corner of the conversation. I hate this quote. We had to let Trump win because Kamala wasn't perfect enough bullshit. He voted for Kamala.
Yeah, he voted. Yeah.
How much excess death are we supposed to put up with so Ta-Nehisi Coates can do hype moments and aura farming? Dead third world kids can't eat moral victories. What the fuck are you even talking about? He's speaking out against genocide against third world kids. What the fuck are you even talking about? But here's the topper. Now, this is how you get paid. This is how you get paid. If you can cast yourself as a black liberal progressive a la Van Jones who gatekeeps anyone who speaks out against the empire, that's where the money is, man. Yvette Carnell, she knows where the money is. She's going for that money. Since we're imagining what civil rights activists would want, can we imagine what James Baldwin would want from a Ta-Nehisi Coates in this moment? Baldwin probably would want the writer who wrote the case for reparations to stay the course and continue to fight for rights and resources of American descendants of slavery. Baldwin would like, this is so completely batshit if you know anything about Baldwin's work. Baldwin would likely tell Coates that it's fine to write critically of Israel, as Baldwin himself did, but not to lose sight of who he's actually fighting for. Well, how has he done that? How has he done that? I don't hear him saying, well, you know, the black struggle's got to take a back seat. I don't hear that. I hear him saying it's very disappointing to see black people in positions of power acting like the same people of non-color, non-melanated people that preceded him. He's calling out a certain hypocrisy, a certain disappointment. In 2026, Baldwin might look around and see that Palestinians already have effective spokespeople and that their political uncommitted strategy was far more effective than any strategy black Americans have to improve our quality of life. All of the civil rights activists Coates mentioned might also tell him that the boot is still on our necks. In what way did he deny that? And as such, that's our priority. We can be empathetic, but we can't pull the boot off anyone else's neck right now. Coates wants us to give our political capital away before we've effectively used it on our own behalf. That's a mistake. Coates does the black freedom struggle a disservice. And given that we haven't yet freed ourselves, we have no obligation beyond symbolic to free anyone else. Yeah, no, that's what I think that's what Du Bois said, right? He said solidarity for your own people and not for anyone else, right?
Obviously, you're not a golfer.
Obviously, you're not a golfer. And I don't even know how Coates defines we, given how many of the people he named are not descended from American chattel slavery. It's a mess. I don't see brilliance here. I see a lack of focus. Well, you know what I see? I see somebody who's on her money. She's on her money. New York Times, CNN, ABC, Vox, NPR. Making that money. Maybe Jeff Bezos will throw you a little of that Van Jones cash.
Yeah.
That was such a pile of gatekeeping, lackey of the establishment horseshit that I get the sense she certainly knows enough about the people whose names she's invoking to know that they would not have been telling him, don't speak out about this. And he is not in any way throwing the black struggle under the bus or suggesting it's not important. He's saying it's better than the political leaders who are purporting to represent it. That is what he is saying. He is saying we have to be better than what came before. What is the point of this struggle if we're just going to replace white people and carry on the same genocidal, psychopathic policies against black, brown, and third world people that we have been a victim of? That is what he's saying, and that is certainly a message that all of the people he invoked would have wholeheartedly endorsed and agreed with were they here today, and I'm sure she knows that. But if you look at who her clients are, that's who she's talking to, and maybe hoping some of that Bezos money will come her way.
Yeah, I mean, when he one of those tweets mentioned, Obama and Ta-Nehisi Coates, obviously, nods to Obama there. The thing about Obama is, I would bet everything I own that Obama's politics are pretty much identical to Coates's. That I think if you were to
he famously hated fucking Netanyahu.
Oh, of course.
So did Clinton.
I think Clinton, I think, is a Zionist. I think Obama, if you sat him down off the record, would tell you he's actually an anti-Zionist. I think Obama's actual politics are actually far more radical than he expressed, because he's a fucking sellout and a whore, which is, you know, a less polite version of what Ta-Nehisi Coates ultimately said there. And I think it takes longer to realize that when you are, you know, getting printed in these establishment outlets, you know, like the Atlantic magazine. But, you know, he's allowed to write a piece about reparations for the Atlantic magazine as long as he is towing the line.
Right.
You know, now I think for...
No, they love that. They love that.
Of course. Yeah. And I think, you know, for someone like Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's more in the literary world than a guy like Van Jones, who is ultimately a talking head, I think, you know, it's probably, things probably weigh on him a little bit more heavily, since he's a more serious thinker than Van Jones ever was, really. But I mean, we've seen this. I mean, in his book, he wrote a whole thing about Gaza, which he got into an argument with the new CBS News guy,
Dolkapil.
And, you know, you've seen him kind of on an arc, and I think Obama has been where he is this whole time. I think it's a process of realizing that these people in high places are there because of a willingness to do what it takes to get there. Mm-hmm. You know, and at a certain point, you know, everybody has to make a choice whether they want to maintain access to that world or whether they want to go out on their own. And I think what differentiates a guy like Van Jones from a guy like Ta-Nehisi Coates is that, you know, Van Jones just doesn't have the substance it takes to go out and make it on your own. You know, like if Van Jones didn't have CNN, who the fuck would know
would listen
or
to that
care,
guy?
you know, what he has to say? And so, you know, the more talented you are, the more you can afford to take these kinds of chances. And the idea of Kamala Harris re-injecting herself into national politics is just so unbelievably despicable on every level, like on every single level. You know,
she wouldn't be Kamala if she weren't doing that.
Yeah, like the obvious moral level is you facilitated a genocide. The fact that you are even feel good about like speaking to a crowd at all shows that you have no conscience. You're going to put yourself forward for president. And then on a political level, the fact that you never earned a single vote in a primary, you lost every single state that you could have possibly lost, like every single contest you ran in 2024, you lost. Like the idea that you're going to put the country or even the party, to the extent you have any loyalty to anything but yourself, like the idea that you're even considering a run just shows what a despicable person you are. And so who out there is defending and look, I think he was too charitable to her in that interview. I appreciate overall what he said, but the struggle that got her, the struggle that you could say that the ascendancy of Obama was a product of a certain civil rights movement. Okay, I buy that. As for everything we've said about Obama, you can make that argument, especially since he ran as an underdog in that race, and he won based on his own talents, and you could say that he was a sort of culmination of a certain movement. Kamala Harris, the struggle that put Kamala Harris where she was the struggle of soulless technocrats to make it look like they cared.
It was
about
the struggle of pretending
diversity
to want to fuck Willie Brown.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was the struggle of soulless technocrats to make it look like they actually cared about representation and diversification.
Sure.
And that's all it was. That's all it was. I mean, the chain of horrible decisions that enabled this second Trump term goes back to Barack Obama nominating Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. That's where it started. And that set off a chain reaction of bad personnel
pushing Biden
decision,
out of the way in favor
and pushing Biden out of the way. Well, elevating Hillary to Secretary of State is what set her up for the presidential run, which is what set Trump up to win, which is what set Biden up for 2020. Right. And, of course, to satisfy the wokesters, Biden had to promise to pick a woman for vice president, which meant it was going to be Kamala. Biden had no brain left. He couldn't make it the full term. He couldn't run, so that meant she had to take his place on the ticket, and she couldn't win. So it's just a string of horrible decisions informed by the exact sort of pathology that Coates talks about there, which is diversification of the ruling class, this compulsion of we have to make it look like anyone can make it in America.
Well,
And
if
that
you're not going to
starts
give
with the
people
Hillary Clinton
economic
thing and ends
progress,
here.
Yeah, you gotta give them the diversity progress and tell them that's progress.
Exactly.
See, we have a black woman as vice president. Look,
And where'd that lead you? Led you to Donald Trump. It led you to the guy
Sure.
who won running against all that.
Well, and I've said this before, a lot of the Hill bots used to make the argument, well, she can't be like Bernie because she's a woman. She would never be allowed to express herself that way. And you know what? They weren't wrong. But I always wondered if they understood what they're arguing. You're making the case that you can't get someone who's not a white man who's worth voting for. Because you're saying that anyone who's not a white man is going to have to be so servile and submissive to the establishment to get anywhere that you, as a voter with policy priorities, have no purpose to vote for them other than to progress identitarian representation in government. You're saying that's literally the only reason to vote for this person.
Right.
However, yeah, why does the system produce Kamalas? You're going to tell me there's no black women out there with a conscience? Of course there are. They can't get through the system. They can't get that far. Only scum can get that far, working with that kind of a disadvantage, because it is a system that structurally discriminates against people of that identity getting to that level. To get to that level, you have to show them you're not going to make it away. Obama did too, right?
Of course.
What kind of cabinet you want, Citibank? I'll do it. Right?
Of course. Exactly. All right. You want to take those super chats?
All right. Carolina on my mind. I'm from another country. I'm living in a fine country, but I'm bound to cross the line. So I'm going to sing this whole chat. I'm from another country, living in the U.S. for a while. I've also been to other countries. I could tell you war is not part of the daily conversation. Well, that's what I said when I came home from Asia, or when I come home from anywhere, but particularly when I came home from Asia, I was like, it changed a lot of my understanding even of humanity. Like, if you get people who are not taught to act like fucking animals, they really don't. They really don't. Like, the idea that we're given that that capitalism is closer to the natural human state.
Right.
It's not true. It's not true. There was actually a study. I told you about this. There was a study they did with monkeys where they found very quickly the whole culture changed, because the more aggressive monkeys, there was like poisoned food, and the more aggressive monkeys would get to the food first. So those aggressive monkeys died because they got to the poisoned food and ate it all and died.
Right.
Then once you took them out of the gene pool, very quickly the whole culture of the community of apes changed, and it became much more peaceful, and everyone was nicer. And even when outside monkeys would come, they would be converted very quickly to their way of doing things. I think that's basically why when I went to Asia, I found people nice and cooperative. Because if you have a society that doesn't encourage you to be a fucking animal, you won't act like a fucking animal.
Right.
It's not human nature the way they taught you capitalism.
Right.
It has to be like this because this is how people are. It's not true. It's how we are. Turd burglar. Hey, that hung like a cow guy needs to fix the sewer system. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna have to snake it. Andy Gardner, just a few years ago, they were pretending they didn't shoot a missile at a hospital. Now the world pretends they're not building concentration camps. That's an excellent point. Axel Strife, I believe that the greatest collective awakening that the newest generations will hoist upon previous ones is that empire depends on a lack of empathy. Yeah. Well, the desire to have an empire suggests a certain lack of empathy. extra 4-2 fries. Religion is BS, except for Falun Gong, of course. I'm equal opportunity. Andy Gardner, thanks for doing what you guys do. Truly honorable. Thank you. Well, hey, man, not like those poor people getting shot at, man. 0744 Pete, good episode, fellas. I enjoy both of your solo channels as well. Thanks. You. Charles Gracia, do like Bree did and invite Yvette Carnell onto your show. She wants to talk to leftists like you about your political challenge with the blacks.
The blacks?
With the blacks.
We should put that in we should email her that. We should say, hey, we hear you want to talk about our political challenge with the blacks.
The blacks.
Yeah. Yeah. We were recommending you.
I mean, I don't know that we personally have a political challenge with the blacks.
Yeah, what do I have a political challenge with the blacks?
I don't know if that's us specifically.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be funny. Albu Kid says there are guarded and secure Chabad Lubavitch houses compounds popping up all over the world, especially in the fascist states like Argentina and the U.S. They've been planning on Israel falling for a while. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, man, that's going to be one of the videos that drops. I filmed that shit in Lao. How the fuck you got a Chabad? Yeah, you're in the middle of Lao, man. You got those motherfuckers with the women with the wigs and shit walking down the street in the middle of Lao. What are you doing here?
It's funny.
What are you doing here? Why?
Ugly old broad says stuff. Russ, I was a junior in high school when Reagan was shot. I felt sorry for it. Jody. You were a junior in high school when Reagan was shot? So yeah, I guess that was a while ago. Sorry. I mean, you're the one, you call yourself old. I was just doing the math. Sounds like Mr. Measy could use an ad read, Keaton. I can't do an ad read. I don't have it with me. But the site, if you want to buy this guy's book here, is dudissidents.com/V Prime. I have that. So there you go. That's the website. Kevin, New York is such a great city. You can watch David Duchovny read poetry at the same time you can watch a plane go through the window.
Oh yeah, Kevin G was. So are you voting for Taylor Lorenz for most improved? We should let the audience vote on it.
That should be an audience vote. Yeah.
Right now it's Taylor Lorenz, Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yep.
Are the two candidates for most improved.
Dissident of the year. It's gotta tell you, it's gonna be hard to beat Afro Man this year. Afro Man is the front runner.
He's looking good.
Yeah, he's looking good. He's looking good. He is the man to beat. Afro Man. It's fine about my name, Keaton. Also, you should show them the About the Author page. I just look for it. I can't find it. Where is it? Usually you put the About the Author either at the front or at the back. Will you bury it halfway through the book? I couldn't find it. Why, is there a picture of you? Otherwise, because I would show it if there was a picture of you. Although I will say my last name is pronounced differently than you'd think because of the way Hungarian phonetics works. The axe is pronounced like atch, like Scotch. So it's Kovac. Is that what your name is? Charles Kovac? Is that what you're saying? Or Charles Kovacs? Ugly old broad says stuff. People act like Obama was some kind of standout. He wasn't. Just another corporate war hawk dem that bent the knee to the entrenched elite. His education wasn't a shield. Ugly old broads is in my lifetime the only party I've ever seen grasp defeat out of the jaws of victory are the Democrats. Yep. That event Russ is talking about is an article called something like Baboon Group Changes Its Culture in the New York Times. I think it happened in the 1980s. Monkey Rotary. Hey, look, only 3 hours late for this show. That's all right. You may be late for the show, Monkey Rotary.
But you made it. You're fashionably late.
Fashionably late. And another way to think of it is that you're early for the Q&A because we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we're going to go to the Q&A. Russ did do an intermission for tonight.
Yes, I did. Some fun stuff in there.
Blue Sky David says I was trolling. Kind of mean. What do you mean I was trolling? I wasn't trolling. Who was I trolling? I was trolling Vienticus. I just said I didn't know where he put his About the Author page in the book. I couldn't find it. Wasn't trolling. I meant it. What else did I say? I wasn't trolling. I didn't troll anybody tonight. I think I was very nice tonight. I think we did a very nice show. I think we did a very great job. I think you should all be very happy with the way the show came out.
A lot of smart people are saying it.
A lot of smart people are saying that. All right. Well, hey, dudissidents.com/rumble is where you can go if you want to hang out with us for the Q&A after party. If you're a member, a Patreon, Substack, or Locals member, you got the call-in link. Feel free to form a call-in line. We're going to take a 5-minute break and continue with the Q&A. If you're not sticking around for the Q&A, we'll see you Tuesday, 1 o'clock. Tuesday Dissidents back for 1 week only this week. So we will be on Tuesday, and then we will be off till Sunday with Russ and Tusker. So Tuesday show this week. Set your calendars. Don't forget it. Be there Tuesday, 1 p.m. If you're sticking around for the Q&A, we'll see you in 5 minutes. Thanks to Jake in the booth. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat, the YouTubers, the Rumblers. Thanks, big thanks to our guest, Sam Husseini. Great pleasure to finally meet him. That was awesome. And we will see you all whenever we see you next, either in 5 minutes or on Tuesday, 1 p.m. Until whenever we see you again. Thanks, everybody, very much for being with us this evening. Appreciate you always. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.